Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of incredible and intense racing action in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge Season 8 has brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and proudly powered by none other than Oris Digital. That's right folks, the challenge that is all about the road cars turned road races is back once again for its third of its 8 installments of this season. But where exactly have we made our way through to today, have we? Well, we're here in the USA still. We've made our way all the way from the West Coast, from Long Beach last time out, to Virginia. And indeed, it's the state of Virginia's premier circuit, the Virginia International Raceway, or VIR, which is playing host for this round. Located in picturesque countryside, this circuit is 68 years of age. And whilst it has gone through several owners and its facilities have definitely changed over its extensive history, one thing that has not is the 3.27 mile layout, which is at its core, its full course, which we'll see our drivers race on today. Now, in the dry, this is a circuit which is narrow at best, and it means that overtaking is possible possible. You can go too wide, but it's normally relegated to the straights and the heavy braking zones. But for a driver to do well around here, they need to be consistent through its curves. They need to be quick on its straights, and they've also got to be hard and fast on the brakes when they come into its hairpins. But that is in dry conditions. That is in a qualifying session or in a race where you're leading the way. Go battling with a rival, you may find yourself having to be compromising in your lines, as otherwise the two of you may find yourself to the grass. And when you do, well, that grass slopes away from the circuit very rapidly, and therefore you're going to be taking a trip to the local woodland. However, that, of course, being in the dry there is recoverable. But when it rains, as we can see in the rear of your picture right now, that makes this circuit an even more tantalising test of technical ability. And for our drivers, our first wet weather race of the season, they're going to need to make sure they're absolutely keyed in today, not just with the track, not just with the conditions, but being able to put it all together to come away victorious. And that is why this is definitely going to be one of our premier stages of this season, as we get ready to see who is going to be the rain maestro and who is perhaps going to struggle and have to put on the armbands. But where exactly are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on the one and only place you can catch all the racing action on a fortnightly basis on the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. And of course, none other than YouTube.com, and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be tuning in there. In the content, if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be your tour guide for this round of racing for the entirety of the season. In terms of our schedule for tonight, times in British summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinate Time +1, UTC +1. As we can see, in approximately 13 minutes' time, we're making our way into our qualifying session. 15 minutes of duration, all drives out on the circuit looking to go for pole position, after which we'll take a brief breather of approximately 5 minutes before making our way to the grid just after what will be 25 to 9 for this evening for our 60-minute feature race. All drives out there looking to give it their all, and well, after round number 2 last time out, definitely saw plenty of racing action up and down the field. Well, we can expect anything here today. Indeed, we can even expect the championship tables to be turned upside down come the checker flag. But let's set the scene, shall we, and bring you up to speed what exactly happened last time out and our calendar, which is still lying in store. Because as we can see, we started off with round number 1 all the way back on the 3rd of March 2026 at the Autodromo International Enzo e Dino Ferrari. The racing action came thick and fast, particularly at the very front of the field, with Stuart Reynolds holding on for the first over win of the season, and it would be Rob Sharp who would be bringing on home the AM win there. But from Italy to California we went, and last time out as we've taken our first round of the survey, what exactly happened at the Long Beach Street Circuit in round number 2? Well, at the very front of the field, it was victory once again for Stuart Reynolds, but with the absence of Daniel Ostler and Daniel Perry having difficulty in qualifying with Porsche not having the power, it did mean that Stuart Reynolds was able to run away with the win, and in the end took victory by 18.3 seconds, while the biggest margins we have seen in recent history for this series. However, you can imagine his Mercedes AMG may be reeled in today. But elsewhere on the 17th of March, in the AM class, it was not straightforward. We did have a brand new winner, with Rob Sharp being away on holiday. He indeed took the win in the season open and said, right, I'm off to enjoy a holiday and to celebrate, and therefore it was left to several drivers. Now on paper in qualifying, you would think it was going to go to one of two Track Mouse Racing's drivers, given the fact they both absolutely dominated the qualifying session, whether it be none other than Mark Johnson, alternatively his teammate. However, what went all very much wrong over the course of what was the race, whether it was Stephen Codman or Mark Johnson, is that they found the barriers very quickly at Long Beach, and therefore Trackmouse saw a guaranteed 1-2 slip out of their grasp and shatter into pieces. But there was one driver who started in third. He held off Ian Anderson right at the start. It was none other than Paul Goffin, who held on to third place all the way through the early stages, and when it all fell apart for Trackmouse Racing, he was able to take the lead, but he was not left alone, because he had a fast and ferocious charge from several drivers coming up behind him, including the Trackmouse pair who were trying to recover, but we also got to see Ollie Carwood-Dean go on the attack, and also just before him an attack from none other than what was Ryan Penny. But both of them end up hitting the barriers as well, or getting it wrong into turn number 1, and in the end, the man who just held on, he was absolutely speechless in his post-round interview, Paul Goffin. He was able to make it his first win in the AM class in his career in the GT4 Challenge, and well, can he make it another one today? But indeed, it was absolutely brilliant battling action in the AM class, and we also got to see plenty of fighting for the spoils and the remainder of the podium and the top 5 overall. But what exactly we're going to see here today? Because today is the 31st of March 2026. We're here at the Virginia International Raceway, and we have got a thriller on our hands. But we'll recap of who exactly took victory in the big headline stories from round number 3. What exactly was the story in the championship standings after 2 rounds? We start off with the overall Drivers' Championship, and here we can see there is one name who leads by a growing margin out of 17 points. It was Stuart Reynolds of Fury Simsport. 2 wins out of 2, and an absolute statement equivalent of win last time out. However, or a very different circuit today, a handling-focused circuit just as much as a power one. We have seen this Mercedes AMG be very strong on the straight and also very good in those traction zones. But when we do have the wet weather conditions as well as all the corners here at VIR, well, you can imagine that could certainly take a change today. So the Fury Sim Sport driver may not be thinking he's going to make it 3 in a row, but who exactly could take the win from him to close the gap? Well, number one candidate, of course, is Daniel Perry, given the fact that now he has had one podium this season, but it was an absolute struggle last time out to be able to land big results, and indeed he was able to secure the second place, albeit he definitely had to get his elbows out right towards the very end of the racing, and he's been able to secure the second in the championship at this time, but indeed, in terms of vision on that podium, it was a distant dream. So therefore, that's enabled the rest of the field to get closer. Guy Edwards is only a point behind the Paddock Motorsport driver for 6-7 Motorsport, and it's only a third point adrift there to Matthias Tem, and another point to the pair of Ben Idris Abdullahi and Matthias Pentelar, with both of them enjoying an absolutely brilliant back and forth battle over the race distance. And behind the Satellite Racing and RD Simsport drivers, we do see Niels Core there on 31 points for Satellite Racing. Axis Simsport's Chris Jennings, he's in 8th. He's definitely been Mr. Consistent so far over the course of this season, the first 2 rounds, albeit he had a very lonely race at Long Beach where he didn't really get to battle with anybody as the rest of the pros started to pull away, but he was too quick for the AMs and therefore found himself in a bit of a no man's land. However, with Daniel Ostler back today, he's currently in 9th, having missed our previous round. We can imagine he'll commit that as a drop score for round number 2. Now he'll be going for wins every step of the way for Paddock Motorsport. He's on 22 points, 4 ahead of Ollie Carwadine and Paul Goffin, equal as your leaders of the AM class in the overall Drivers' Championship. However, you will see very shortly what happens when we look at the AM Drivers' Championship standings, where we score the points based on the AM finishing positions, and that complexion takes a very different turn. They are only a point ahead there of Trackmouse Racing's Mark Johnson, and it's Simon Povey, Rob Sharp and Stephen Codman completing the run to 15th place there, and it's so tight there for overall points between our AM drivers and also some pros who haven't been impressing as much so far, with Niels Cooler missing our racing last time out and therefore falling to 16th place for Axis Sim Sports, 1 point ahead of Dennis Van Beelen, and it's 7 points apiece for Andy Chell and Ryan Penny, with 6 also there for Jules Gardner and Kim Such, 5 for Ian Anderson, 4 for Heinzmeier, and Martin Rendell completes your top 24 and 2 points to Privateer, and yet scoring the overall points, it's Andy Marsden, Gary Toole, John Roberts, Lee Berridge and Matty Wild. But now to the AM Drivers' Championship after 2 rounds. And what we can see here is that Paul Goffin, the Sim Racing Magazine driver, leads by a single point. Indeed, with the absence of Rob Sharp, somebody had to jump into the power vacuum at the very top, and it was Goffin for SRM, who was able to do so only by the tiniest of margins. But to be fair, it is so close at the very top, and Ollie Carwadine there, the roam-worthy driver, keep your eyes out for him. He's been looking very quick. Now, he's putting it down to the fact that he's really gelling with the Mercedes AMG car that he's driving. Indeed, he's definitely got a trick there, because he's really come forth at the start of this season. Could he be one of the big favourites as the season goes on? Well, he'll try to prove that today. Trackmouse Racing's Mark Johnson sits in 3rd on 39 points, and he'll be absolutely kicking himself from last time out. Indeed, Mark Johnson right now, if you could literally relabel a driver as bad luck, Mark Johnson would be the driver who would have that name given to him, because of the fact he's been in winning positions in his cars in previous seasons and this season, and every time it has gone wrong. But surely that bad luck has to end at some point for him. If it does not, I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, never get him to buy a lottery ticket, because he'll probably lose it on the way to cashing it in. But he'll try to cash in some major points today, as will Andy Shell, the number 26 driver, in terms of points there. But of course, the Quetmas Motorsport driver, not right now clear of Ryan Penny. In fact, the RS Racing driver equal on points there, but behind only based on result count back. And then do have Giles Garner in 6th place there for SRM, equal on points to Rob Sharp, who's back once again today for Boris Racing. There's 2 points for RS Racing for Kim Such, and then it's going to be Niels Cooler and Stephen Codman completing that top 10. Codman right now, again, a similar boat to Mark Johnson. Last time out, he was the favourite to take victory at Long Beach after a stellar pole lap, but in the end, it all fell apart in the race, much like it did for Johnson, and well, everything seemed to be guaranteed until it was not, and therefore the Trackmouse Racing driver will not want to let a second chance go astray. Ian Anderson had a frustrating day last time out at Long Beach, with the car ending up going very wide at one corner and picking up some damage, and unfortunately Aston Martin not repairable at that point, and he'll be hoping for a much more straightforward day today. Indeed, right now the See You Next Tuesday driver only a point ahead of Heinzmeier for Rowan Worthy, and then we do have Martin Rendell in 13th place, the privateer, on 12 points. Matty Wild has 8 to his name for DCW Racing, seeing several brushes with the barriers at Long Beach, but to be fair, challenging round. Long Beach is not an easy circuit. He'll be hoping for an easier day today. He's only a point ahead of John Roberts of Boosted Motorsport, and it's 6 points in the name of Sim Racing Magazine's Andy Marsden, with Gary Toole and Lee Berridge yet score any points there for GST Motorsport and Boosted Motorsport respectively. Now that's how the Drivers' Championship stands. What about the Teams' Championship? Here we can see Fury Simsport, they have moved to the top. They've taken over on 85 points to 63 of Satellite Racing, and therefore right now their game plan is simple: trying to run away And with the well-earned victory, of course, for Stuart Reynolds, and with 2 wins now back-to-back, and also what was a very good performance there from his teammate over the course of the race at Long Beach. Well, they've definitely got to be thinking about now breaking away from satellite racing as best as they can. And, well, it was Matthias Tem who was able to outthink Ben Idris Abdullahi on strategy, and that's why satellite racing have fallen to second place with 63 points. Planet Motorsport, they sit in third right now, 10 clear of 6-7 Motorsport, and then you do have a further 11 points there to Axis Sim Sports, with Track Mouse Racing in 6th place right now, looking to try and find those big scores to break them away from the rest of the teams that made up AM drivers, which Rome Worthy are definitely nipping at the heels there, only a further 5 points behind him. Sim Racing Magazine and Orius Racing complete those with points to their name through to 9th place, and yet score any points is Boosted Motorsport in 10th. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've given you a recap of the championship standings coming into this round, but we need to briefly mention our prizes from the previous round, and here are our round 2 medal winners. Firstly, reading from left to right, a huge congratulations to our overall race winner of Stuart Reynolds, who now has 2 winners' medals to his name. Can he make it a turkey today? Meanwhile, in the AM class, a second winner in 2 races. Now, Paul Goffin picks up a medal for the victory at Long Beach. Congratulations to him. As for our safest driver award, well, it does go to Niels Kaur because he was the highest finisher in the race with 0 instant points. Did very well to avoid the barriers. We must also give a shout out to those also who picked up 0 instant points, but they did not win the award because they finished behind Niels Kaur. And that did include our 8th place finisher last time out of Chris Jennings, our 14th place finisher of Andy Chell, and also Gilles Garner, who finished 16th. So well done to all 4 of them, but only one of them could take the medal, and it was Niels Kaur. As for our Move of the Race award, well, our judging panel is not fully available at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, or was not in the build-up to this round, in the fact we do have a couple of members of the judging team on holiday, including Andy Marsden and also none other than Heinz Mayer, but we do expect them to be back for what will be round number 4, and therefore we'll give you a double bill of the Move of the Round awards next time out in the round 4 broadcast. We'll bring you up to speed with the winner of the round 2 medal and also the winner of the round 3 medal, so that will be confirmed in a couple of weeks' time. But what we can definitely confirm with certainty is our host circuit for today is, of course, the full course layout of VIR, the Virginia International Raceway, located near the unincorporated community or the town of Alton in the Halifax County of Virginia, with this American circuit definitely one that stands out the test of time, because where it's GT3s, GT4s, you name it, it's raced here, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. As the drivers roar the way down the curve, start-finish straight, they're heading towards Horseshoe Bend at turn number 1. Coming out of that sharp hairpin, it'll then be a run towards turns 2 and 3. It's a small kink at 2 to set up the braking zone for turn number 3 at NASCAR Bend. Coming through left-hander there and in towards turn number 4 at left hook. It'll be a left hook into a right-hand cross as they come through turns 5 and 5A. And then they'll make their way through the kinks of the snake and all the way out through the pass to turns 7, 8 and 9. The high-speed pass, which is all about lift and coast off the throttle if you dare. And heading in towards South Bend at turn number 10. Surely if it does not go south, our drivers will be making their way down towards Oak Tree Bend at turns 11 and 12. Named after the infamous tree that used to be pitched on the outside of the corner. Cut down, however, due to reasons of pertaining the health of the local forest streak, and I do believe the oak tree was gradually dying, but the racing's not going to die there for our drivers. They roar the way out the hairpin and all the way out the backstretch in towards Roller Coaster Bend at turns 14 and 14A. Downhill they'll go for the Virginia equivalent of the Laguna Seca corkscrew in California, and as they come out of that, it'll be into turns 15 and 16 as they dive their way into Hogpen Bend, and through 17 and 17A, they'll come out absolutely full throttle in the charge to the finish line, or at least to go on to another lap. A quick reminder of the rules before we do go racing. Car setup wise, drivers are running a fixed setup, the iRacing fixed setup with fuel loads restricted to 42%. Now you will notice that's in red. We have increased the fuel load from 37% to 42%, and that is to accommodate a slight tweak to the balance of performance that we are making for the Aston Martin, whereby its fuel load of 37% for most circuits was deemed not to be appropriate enough compared to the other cars, and therefore it does give the Aston Martin the ability to comfortably do the two-stop strategy that all the other cars are able to do, as we did see unfortunately Mark Johnson being caught out by that at Imola in the season opener, and where it was deemed on reflection the Aston Martin's fuel tank was way too narrow on its fuel margin. But otherwise we will be staying with that 42% fuel tank for the rest of the season, and no other changes have been made to the setup. Qualifying wise, an open qualifying format shall be used as per usual, so you see every driver out on the circuit looking to go for pole position, but it means our drivers have to be wary of each other for the use of slipstream, but also making sure they do not impede each other. And as for our race, well, the race shall commence via a single file rolling start. Now the reason for that, we'd normally go double file, is because of the inclement conditions. We are expecting there to be heavy rain on the circuit as we're going green flag racing, and therefore our drivers will be required to take a single file rolling start for the purposes of safety there, because the spray will be absolutely huge in double file and also be very risky in the run towards turn number 1. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements. So drivers are expected to come into the pits as and when they dare, but of course we do keep in mind that normally our races are 2 stops, and normally around every 20 minutes you'll see a pit stop. Now each driver has 1 fast pair available should they need to use it, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 8 or more instant points, and should they be very cheeky and naughty, they'll be getting to 25 instant points and they will be disqualified. Meanwhile, as for all race stewarding, it shall be conducted post-race. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way with haste back to circuit side, and well, it does seem as though with the rain falling, all drivers are pretty much set here, and we haven't got too long before we do go into our qualifying session. In fact, I do believe the checkered flag has just come out, but what we can see from these visual pictures here is just how much water has accumulated around the circuit. Indeed, I feel sorry for our cameramen and our marshals out there who'll be getting very soggy if they are not undercover. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to make our way into qualifying. Who is going to take pole position here at a rain-logged VIR circuit? Well, let's find out over 15 minutes. And so here we go into qualifying. Who's going to be on pole? Who's going to languish behind? Here we'll see, because I'll try to start to make the way out of the pit lane. There's Matthias Pentelar, the RD SimSport 4 Mustang driver. Livery finally on the car. They've been working on that livery for some time, but it is out there, and Daniel Perry follows him out. Now, what can we expect in terms of the format of our drivers and the flow of them? Well, what we can definitely expect is that Daniel Perry, for example, in his Porsche Cayman, is going to be looking quite strong here today. But before we do that, we do say hello there to Monkey102, who says, just dropping in to say hi, and hello to you, good sir. Can't stay to watch it live, but looking forward to watching the video on demand, and we're wishing everyone the best of luck in the rain. And well, thank you for that, Monkey, and I hope you have a lovely evening, and we will catch up with you at some point in the future, good sir or madam. But as we do see Daniel Perry making his way out, we come back to the flow, which is what can we expect from our drivers' cars? Well, balance performance-wise, we have seen the Mercedes has been one of the stronger cars in the dry this season, given its combination of weight, but also power and traction at low speed. We do know that the Porsche is a very strong car out there when it comes to handling capability, but it lacks the speed in terms of the top end, and therefore it does really have to try and fight its way through under braking and in the corners. And Daniel Perry definitely experienced a lot of that at Long Beach, and the frustration really bubbling over in the early stage of the race, and also towards the end of the race he had to go battling against several drivers in much more powerful cars on the straights, and in the end having to get his elbows out. But can you blame him for it when he spent so long shadowing them throughout the race distance? But it's not just about Daniel Perry and also Matthias Pentelar. We do have other cars out there, of course, including none other than the Aston Martin of Ian Anderson. But an interesting car, this one, of course, because the Aston Martin has to be driven a very particular way in its gearbox in order to get most out of it. The V8 with the twin turbo, the idea is that this car does have a significant amount of turbo lag to it if you do not keep the revs high. But intriguingly, that could actually benefit this car in the wet, because if you do end up experiencing a degree of turbo lag, what you end up doing is essentially you achieve traction because you're not getting that much torque through the wheels, and once the wheels have been able to grip up in the wet, you will suddenly get that power by the time you get to the right point of the power band in the engine. And the idea is actually this Aston Martin could be a little bit of a sleeper when it comes to driving in the wet ticks. It is one of those cars where you'll naturally perhaps default into driving the car a little bit less aggressively compared to how you would normally do so. But we are expecting the cars that are going to be mid-engine rear-wheel drive, of which the Porsche is one of them, and we also do of course have the McLarens, of which we do have one out there today. That's Guy Edwards' McLaren 570S. We expect them to be the stronger cars because the weight being behind the driver means that rear end of the car is going to grip up a little bit quicker, albeit it's not to say it's going to be perfect. It is not a cheat code to drive in the wet to have mid-engine rear-wheel drive, but it definitely helps when you've got all the weight planted towards the rear axle rather than distributed evenly over the car. But as we do say hello to Jay Decker there, who says the weather looks filthy, not envious of the lads tonight. Indeed, I'm not envious of them, ladies and gentlemen. Happy to be in an air-conditioned commentary booth, but as our drivers make the way on through right now, I can definitely feel for them going out there, because driving in the wet requires a very particular style. Now normally, of course, when you go around a lap in the dry, you want to drive on the racing line. There's an optimum line out there for the fastest possible lap. When you're in the wet, as you can see here, just sprinklings of rain coming down at the moment, just topping up the puddles out there. Well, the aim of the game, even on wet tyres, is to avoid the major puddles and try to find the optimum line where there's a degree of water to give the wet tyres the opportunity to stay nice and cool and give you the optimum grip. But you don't want to find too much water, and you don't want to find the driest patch of the circuit, so you'll rip the wet tyre to pieces, and you'll turn it very quickly into a lesser than useful slick tyre, because you'll take all the tread blocks off of it, and suddenly it won't be able to distribute any water anywhere, and it won't have any grip available. So therefore, they're going to have to try and do some research. They do these laps Of course, every lap that a driver puts in on this circuit, they will be redistributing the water. And well, if we don't get too much on top of the rain, we can imagine this circuit may get a little bit quicker as time goes on. Now, we do need to give a few mentions coming into this round with regards to absences for today. Indeed, as we did indicate with regards to talking about the move of the round from round number 2, we do not have Heinz Mayer nor Andy Marsden here today. I do believe Heinz is still currently on holiday and Andy wasn't able to make this round. And we are also missing 2 Andys today because we are missing Andy Chow as well, the Quackmass Motorsport driver, not quite able to make this round. So I do believe he's caught at work, but if he is tuning in right now, I'm definitely saying one thing: we're definitely missing all 3 of them, including Andy Chow, and we wish them all a lovely time away, and we hope to see them back on the grid in round number 4 in 2 weeks' time. But of course, with the absences of drivers, we do have the return of a few drivers. Niels Kula was one of the big names in the AM class who missed last round. The Access Sport driver not able to make it due to personal circumstances, but back today, and do remember the fact that he was battling for victory at Imola in round number 1. Fell just a little bit short in that brilliant race-long battle between himself and Rob Sharp, where it all came down to what was strategy, and both of them back today. Here's Rob Sharp for Burris Racing, so therefore we look forward to seeing what these two are going to be able to do as they get themselves very firmly set and their sights on each other. But speaking of sights being set right now, is our BMW M4 G82 Evo driver there. Lee Berridge goes the 5th fastest of everybody at 208.785. That's an absolutely staggering lap there. That puts him firmly in amongst all the pros. Well, Berridge right now, he's not had a season really to shout about so far, and suddenly he's finding quite a lot of pace out there. So I do wonder whether he's perhaps got the keys here to wet weather conditions, because he does seem to be a little bit of wet weather maestro. As Matty Wild goes up there to 9th. Meanwhile, Stephen Codman jumps up to 5th. So I think right now everyone's getting tyre temperature, as Wild goes just that little bit deep at turn number 1 at Horseshoe, recognising the fact he can't be that aggressive. As Gary Toole for GST Motorsports, he's on the grid now. Good to see him here, and as he makes his way on around, 211.774. Everyone's finding time out there, and I think right now it's just about getting settled in. And we'll very shortly get you an onboard lap with one of our drivers, and the wonderful thing you can see on the timing graphic on the left hand side, or the time tail graphic, is what tyres our drivers are running, whereby if it does have the W with the blue circle, understandably that means they are on the wet tyre or the treaded tyre, and should we see it go to what would be a white circle with a D in it, it means they're on dry tyres or slicks. And we did see a couple of drivers put the slicks on initially as they left the pit lane, only to very quickly be towed back to the pit box and decided to go back onto the wet tyre there. I think a few decided to try and gamble nice and early, but that gamble was deemed not worth it. Now, if things should brighten up here, we have got plenty of cloud over the circuit, and we have got a relatively moderate ambient temperature for this time of year of 19 degrees centigrade, and that's the same for our track temperature. And track temperature will stay low, whilst we do have stagnant standing water on the circuit and rain topping it up. But you can imagine that as we do see the circuit dry, should the rain completely go away, and we are expecting it to go away at some point, and so that track temperature will come up, and therefore this circuit will get a little bit more lively with the grip it has to offer. So that's always a fault for our drivers, the fact that this circuit may have a lot of life to give, particularly when we do go green flag racing. But Daniel Perry raises the bar there to a 204.91, currently ahead of Niels Core by the best part of 1.2 seconds. Core has gone to another lap. He did not improve on his previous one too much, so therefore Perry definitely setting the pace right now. Huge benchmark out there. Lee Berridge jumps up to 4th again, a 208.092. He is absolutely flying in that BMW, a car we wouldn't normally associate with wet weather driving. Normally this BMW has been one of the most unstable of the GT4s we have seen. It is a very strong car in the corners as well as it is on the straights, but you've got to be able to tame it. It has got a very aggressive rear axle for a front engine rear wheel drive car, as we do see there Lee Berridge deciding to explore the track limits of NASCAR Bend, particularly going onto the exit curb and then realising, well, you don't touch those curves, but he's going to try and conquer them either way as he tries to bring things back together. And Daniel Ostler comes across the timeline. He goes 5th there. That's an impressive lap. His first lap on the board, or at least the first valid lap on the board, at 207.047. So slams himself right onto that 3rd row, head of the Aboriginal pole sitter at this time as we get to the halfway point of the qualifying session. So there's still time to be found out there. Just drivers have got to try and find it and dig it out. But as we do wonder where our current championship leader is, here he is, Stuart Reynolds right now, going for the ultimate prize, of course, which is to defend his title crown from Season 7 in that season-long battle between himself and Alex Gall. Unfortunately not in the grid for the season, but as we do see Reynolds coming on down, he's definitely got firm company. He's seen it so far, but he Paddock Motorsport surrounding him in round number 1 at Imola, and right now here today the Mercedes driver finding himself not in that comfortable position. Remember, he took pole position at Long Beach by almost 5.5 tenths. He absolutely dominated in qualifying, and it translated into domination in the race. Well, sprinkle some rain on the circuit, and it's definitely right now made him have to fight through another challenge. That's all part and parcel of racing these GT4s, in the fact that with the wet weather conditions available in iRacing, and we have timelines this weather to make sure we do not get red flag levels of rain, but we are seeing that rain definitely changing up the tone today. But without further ado, we come to Chris Jennings. He makes his way out to the final corner, and we jump on board with him for a flying lap of the wonderful VIR circuit. So as he makes his way across that timeline, looking for his line in towards turn number 1 through the kink, and he gets ready to go onto the brakes. He'll brake there about 220 metres in corner apex, all the way down to first gear in the Ford Mustang, as he just tiptoes his way out in first gear, fighting every step of the way with the car, traction control aiding him, and now getting ready to go in towards turn number 2. Bring the car through left-hand kink, it normally be flat out, but lift and coast there in the wet conditions, and braking into NASCAR bend, getting it nice and set up there, making sure not to go onto the exit curve, but there's plenty more water, no grip. Now braking into left hook bend, keeping it nice and tight. It's got to get the car to the left, but takes a bit too much of the apex curve there. It just forces the car to understand that, compromising the line for the right-hander as he comes out turn 5A, now in towards the snake here, and once you get it wrong on one quarter, you're suddenly offline for the rest of them, and keep in mind there's a lot of water between the apexes, but Jennings powers his way on through, and now as he makes his way out towards the fast flying section, the pass of turns 7, 8 and 9, left into right, followed by a left-hander. You can see that it's all about getting the car set up as he exits 9 and now lets the car roll out before braking into South Bend at turn number 10, down from 4th to 3rd. Gear, does he understeer? Not quite. He's really keeping this car absolutely planted right now as he comes in towards Oak Tree, braking at about 170 meters in corner apex, down to first gear, decides to square it off and turn it into a proper V-shaped hairpin rather than trailing it out towards turn 12's apex. Now full throttle every step of the way down the back stretch, and this is where the Ford Mustang's 5-litre V8 Coyote engine can really open up the taps. The balance of performance dictating the Ford Mustang is the quickest on the straights, but is weaker in the corners compared to most of its counterparts, whereas I do believe this is the heaviest car of the GT4 category at the moment, so it does also risk increased tyre wear, but he makes his way in towards the left into right here of a roller coaster, or here just gradually tiptoeing his way down all the way to first gear at the apex, and now build up the gears quickly, but you've got to get the line right coming into Hogpen, coming through 15 to 16. There's a lot of water here. He's got to be careful not to hit the big puddle that forms right in the middle of the road. He just dodges it, and going down through 16. Car rejoining, that's going to be Niels Core, who's taken a long trip to the grass, but Chris Jennings comes out of Hogpen Bend, charges towards the line, and well, it's been an impressive middle sector from Jennings, but what about the rest of the lap? It's not really been an improvement, but can Jennings go higher than 10th place at the moment in the number 22? The answer is going to be no can do. Jennings stays where he is at the moment, but almost matches his previous best, out by 2 tenths there, but really struggling right now to find what is a smooth line, and then having to fight that Mustang every step of the way, as Niels Core, meanwhile, having a rejoin there, and we have Jules Gardner in the pit lane, and he has not set a valid lap as of yet, so he might be starting 24th at this rate. But to be fair, starting from the back of the field may not be a bad thing, as, oh my good lord, Daniel Perry, they're going one way then the other. And he turns it sideways. Can he get it under control? He can, but the Fury Sim Sport machine, also run under the name of Paddock Motorsport. All right, now the sister teams of Fury Sim Sports driver absolutely hustling there through the snake, but unfortunately being bitten on the backside, and will feed in the venom there. But right now, 3 minutes left. We do have overtime in this qualifying session as well. He's still trying to go for outright pole position. And well, if you're sat there right now thinking, well, he's already almost 7 tenths clear, he doesn't need to do much, surely. Well, the problem is, with these conditions and the fact that this circuit, well, as we can see there, the rain is continuing to be topped up. These cameras don't always show you the drizzle, where you can never take anything for granted. It only takes one very good lap, and suddenly you can be jumping up. And I do agree with you there, Jay Decker, saying that Daniel Perry, an absolutely fantastic save. We thought that was going into the wall, but not quite so. He wrangled it away from the barriers there, and making sure the magnets in them. There's not quite magnets, but a driver always thinks there's a magnet pulling the car towards the barrier, or the car definitely staying on the road where it needs to be. But what exactly is happening in AM? Perry's dominating the way over on in Pro. What about our AM Bridgel pulses of Lee Berridge? Well, he is currently still almost a tenth quicker. In fact, he's 1.2 tenths quicker than Ian Anderson. And how about this? We said to watch out for the Aston Martin drivers, and right now Ian Anderson is absolutely flying out there. And I'm really happy for him, because he's had a bit of a difficult start to the season. Round number 1 was okay, although it did go a little bit wrong with regards to strategy. Round number 2, meanwhile, is definitely a write-off for our number 455 driver. Nothing quite went right in round number 2, and in the end the barriers of California definitely claiming him quite early in the day. But as he makes his way onwards right now, well, can he find a way to get back at Berridge? He has set a personal best sector 2, so that would be the run effectively all the way up towards what will be through the pass and towards Oak Tree. Hold up, there's a car in pieces there, being towed back to the pit lane. Is that Martin Rendell who's had just a big shunt? We'll have to wait and see. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can, but Rendell's back in the pit lane from in a tow, so I think that was Rendell's car, his Porsche in pieces. And meanwhile, Ian Anderson not thinking about that, and the intruder from stage left on our camera as he comes down into Hogpen Bend, really attacking the corner car around there. That is Ryan Penny who's gone for a spin, but we're staying with Anderson here because right now he has gone personal best as well in the final sector just before the finish line. Can he round it off it? Can he potentially promote himself? Mark Johnson has taken provisional pole in the AM class whilst we've been looking at Anderson, and the answer for Anderson is it's not quite an improvement. He practically matches his previous best, but it's not enough as Mark Johnson, another Aston Martin driver for Trackhouse Racing, he right now is looking to be the quickest AM driver out there with a minute to go. Right now it's all in the balance here. They're all on their final lap, so if they're not, they will be very soon. Otherwise they will have completed their qualifying session, but Johnson right now absolutely attacking, and well, this is entertaining qualifying from these drivers. And you can imagine this is just the qualifying session, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a race coming up that's 60 minutes in duration, a big hour, and therefore over the course of the hour all these drivers will need to wrestle with the conditions, and should the circuit dry, which we believe the forecast says it will at some point begin to dry, then it will be about that transition from the wet tyre to the slick tyre, and who gets it right versus who gets it wrong. Or is there ever going to be a transition? As meanwhile, is that Ryan Penny off again, I believe? We just saw briefly in the rear of the picture. No, not quite. There's another car that's taken a trip off the road. There's several that have gone off the road at this point, as Penny right now, he's currently at the 5th fastest in the AM class here, looking respectable. However, still a way off the pace as Ollie Carwadine all the way to the back of the AM class and overall 22nd and running wide there coming out of NASCAR Bend. That is not going to help his line in towards left hook. He does get it stopped, but he has to stop it in the middle of the road. The car is constantly weaving under braking there. That's not because the driver's done something wrong under braking. It's because the rear weight transfer is still having to calm down out of NASCAR because he did go onto the exit curve, but there's a lot of standing water and no grip. Those curbs, of course, whilst many use them over the race distance in the dry, and there's no actual grip on them compared to the tarmac, they are weaker, but the cars in the dry don't mind that. You open up the corner and you normally get the power down, which settles the car. In the rain, they are a place for hoarding and puddling water, and with there being no grip on the track surface, we can imagine it almost leads to the cars aquaplaning off the curbs rather than being able to find any traction at all. That's why Carwadine right now is definitely trying to work hard. He's got half a second to find to get to Rob Sharp, who's down in 21st place. Paul Goffin as well, 19th at best. He parks up. Well, right now, he's not improved. Benijis Abdallah, he's going to be 9th in the end, and we've still got some drivers coming towards the end as Niels Kaur calls him down. He will go 3rd here today. One impressive qualifying points from him. Daniel Perry, meanwhile, well, I think he's on a cool-down lap, but right now he's still throwing the car around as if it's a flying lap just to see where the water is. And I get the feeling right now he's enjoying himself out there. In fact, he's trying to put on a bit of a show as he calls on down, but we still got some drivers on laps, including Ryan Penny. Can he improve from 13th place? The answer is going to be no. So Penny does not improve. What about Niels Kooler? He's coming down. He's currently 15th place, 6th in AM. And well, as he rolls his way out in the Porsche 918 Cayman GT4, well, it's looking as though that's going to be a lap he's going to complete. Has he improved so far? No. Has he matched his previous best? Not quite. So therefore, it's all going to come down to a final sector and a dream to move him from 15th to wherever he can be on the starting order. And the answer is going to be we need at least 300s to get ahead of Matthias Tem. He doesn't find them. He misses out there, and he missed out on his previous best by only, 200. So, 200s in the wrong direction. Matthias Tem here is on his final lap, but I do believe there might have been a bit of a moment for some other drivers who were on lap, so he is going to be the very last driver to be able to put a lap together. He's currently 14th, and this is a very different place to be compared to last time out at Long Beach. As he crosses that timing line, can he get himself up into the top 10? The answer is going to be no, he cannot. And Matthias Tem and Dennis Van Beenen, the two biggest shockers of them all, 14th and 16th. It's not gone right for them. But meanwhile, for Daniel Perry, while Stuart Reynolds may have dominated in the dry at Long Beach in qualifying, Daniel Perry in the wet is definitely right now the wet weather maestro here. And world challenge in a Michael Schumacher or Jenson Button, if you will, the modern racing era. And as Perry makes his way on down pit lane, he'll be pleased as punch for that. No, that's pole position, but now he's going to have his closest rival, Stuart Reynolds, starts in the front row with him. But if Perry can take victory today, he'll definitely level the playing field and he'll break away from the rest of the pack that's trying to chase him down. In AM, Mark Johnson on pole position here. This is his 2nd pole position of the season. He missed out on pole at Long Beach to his teammate of Stephen Codman, but can he finally, at the 3rd time of trying this season, convert it into victory? Well, for all that and more, ladies and gentlemen, we will see, because it's time for our drivers to have a 5-minute break before we do make our way to the grid for our one and only race in round number 3 of the championship. But as our drivers definitely cool things down, well, the tempo's definitely not cooling down here as we now get the 5-minute warm-up period. And what did we learn from our qualifying session? Well, we noticed, firstly, that Daniel Perry definitely looks very comfortable in these conditions. That's a big tick in the box for him. It may not be for the other drivers, as Daniel Ostler decides to see if the slick tyre is the right tyre to go out onto the circuit with. And I think he's going to very quickly discover it may not be as they make the way onwards. Now, there will be a formation lap, and the interesting thing about formation laps at VIR, for those not in the know, they actually start in the pit lane here. So you'll see all the drivers queue up if we are doing the full formation lap, which I believe we are. They will queue up at the end of the pit lane, not on the start-finish straight, and they will make their way out onto the circuit and then complete the entire 3.27-mile lap. It happens at a few circuits around the globe, as also they're demonstrating why the dry tyre is not the right one at the moment, as I do believe he dipped a tyre as well on the grass in the exit horseshoe bend. But a little bit of trivia as well for you here with regards to the VIR circuit. If you're wondering why turn number 3 is known as NASCAR Bend. Now, I don't know the specific race, but I do know there was a special race held for NASCAR racing drivers, particularly a race of champions, you could say, in a way. And in that race of champions, I believe it might have been in 1989 or 1998. I won't say it's one of the two there, but I'm sure somebody's going to check it for me if you're astute or you already know. And to be fair, I'm very happy to be corrected on this, so I've got this entirely wrong. But NASCAR Bend, or turn number 3, as it was previously known, was a corner that caught out several of the leading NASCAR drivers of the generation, and because they all fell foul of the corner, it was renamed NASCAR Bend in honour of their demise, if you will. So a little bit of a negative connotations of it being called NASCAR Bend at turn number 3, but that's how it got its name. In fact, it was the corner that caught out many a NASCAR driver. But to be fair, NASCAR racing on road circuits just as much as ovals as well. And on the European continent, if you didn't know, there is the official Euro NASCAR series, sponsored by Whelen, which is dedicated to road racing for NASCARs. And they're a slightly different type of car. They're not quite the NASCARs you see in the US of A, but they do run the same restrictor plate-based 450 brake horsepower V8 engine, and they are based on silhouettes of the likes of Ford Mustangs, Camaros, and also, I do believe, the up-and-coming Toyota GR Supra. But just a little bit of trivia there for you, if you were curious as to NASCAR on road racing and why NASCAR has a bit of an affiliation here with the VIR circuit. But as we segue away from that, back to Chris Jennings here, we've still got half the session to go in qualifying. Well, not in qualifying, in the warm-up practice session, I should say. We've done qualifying, I've got to get my head in the right place. But as we do look to Matthias Pentelar making his way on around, why exactly are drivers out on circuit right now for those who are out there? Well, there can be several reasons. A little bit of reconnaissance and research is always valuable. Getting out there and looking to see exactly where the standing water is. Has it moved around since qualifying? Alternatively, has the circuit got wetter? Is it getting drier? But also, another thing is, by going out to circuit and laying down what would be some rubber, in theory, as the saying would go, what these drivers are trying to do right now is actually displace some of the water. They're trying to get some of the water off the circuit. Albeit, I think right now you're going to need a lot more cars out there and a lot more laps and time to be able to get the water off before we do go green flag racing to make the circuit feel a bit more comfortable, but that can be part of the game as well. Every little bit of water that can be displaced and moved off the circuit could come to help a driver later on when we do go to the race. But as we do see Matthias Pentelar making his way down, and I believe that is a very long trip there from Paul Goffin. That's not the way you do the roller coaster, but to be fair, he parks it up and keeps out the barrier there, so well done to him for doing so, and we'll show him what happens and how easy it is to get it wrong. And as we mentioned earlier on, this is one of those circuits where you go wide, and at most corners you will see the grass will slope away from the circuit. Now in the dry, that's hard enough because you are essentially having to drive up a hill to get yourself back onto the tarmac. In the wet, understand that grass will feel like marshland, and trying to get a car off of that grass back onto the tarmac is going to present a lot of challenges. It's normally a lot easier driving it on the flat because you'll essentially just skid across the grass, albeit a higher speed such as going for the S's here. The problem is, you get it wrong through here and touch the grass, you are gone. There's no way you're getting that car back unless you're going to be converting yourself into your inner Colin McRae. But as we do see Neil Score coming down in towards Oak Tree Bend, well, the McLaren there of what is Guy Edwards right behind the 6-7 Motorsport driver. And I think right now Guy Edwards just enjoying running a little bit close. But as he gets closer and closer, he will have to deal with a growing amount of spray off that Ford Mustang. Not the worst spray, but definitely not the easiest spray to negotiate, and that's why we're also going to be seeing that single file formation start in order to limit the amount of spray that the rows behind the pole sitter are going to be experiencing. Of course, everyone behind the pole sitter will see some spray, but it will not be as pronounced as we do see Edwards there cutting up the inside of the Satellite Racing Ford Mustang. Therefore, swap a place, but carries too much momentum, and well, it's a big balancing act here, and that's going to be a little bit noisy. Edwards now take into the race if he's going to go for a move into roller coaster, particularly in these early stages of the race where the circuit is wet and the tyres are not warm, you've got to brake a lot earlier than that and shave off the speed. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, will it be a game of Need for Speed here today, or will it be about cool, calm and collected consistency at VIR? Well, it's time to find out, because it's time for our drivers to make the way to the grid for round number 3 of Season 8 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, sponsored by our title sponsor of Oris Digital here on iRacing. And so as our drivers make the ones to grid for the 3rd race of the season, this will all line up for our 60-minute feature race. Starting on pole position with his first pole position of the season, it is going to be Daniel Perry for Paddock Motorsport. By the biggest margin in qualifying so far this season, he has taken pole by 6.5 tenths. Fury Sim Sports Championship leader Stuart Reynolds, the defending champion, lines up in 2nd, and behind them, starting in 3rd, Niels Korv, another impressive qualifying performance. The satellite racing driver there from Germany, just out qualifying Guy Edwards, on the road that is, albeit the time gap was almost an entire second, so the top 3 in a bit of a department of their own. But Guy Edwards at the head of the rest of the field for 6-7 Motorsport by the best part of half a second over Daniel Ostler for Paddock Motorsport. And well, he may have missed round number 2, but he definitely hasn't missed a trick when it comes to having some outright pace. Starting in 6th place, completing that 3rd row, it's RD Sim Sports Matthias Penteler, the flying Finn there, quite close to Ostler, but indeed the best part of 4 attempts ahead of your pole sitter of Mark Johnson. Johnson doing a brilliant job there, starting 7th for Track Mouse Racing, and in the end outpacing Lee Berridge by the best part of what was 3 to 4 attempts. The boosted motorsport driver there just missing out in terms of being able to pip Johnson late on, with Johnson stealing that pole lap away, but the Brit in there still starting 2nd in the AM class in 8th place. Round off your top 10, it's going to be Ben Idris Abdullahi for Satellite Racing, and the Frenchman will be joined on the 5th row by Ian Anderson with his best qualifying points of the season for the See You Next Tuesday Scottish Aston Martin, and the 455 driver will be looking to move forward from there. Starting in 11th place, it's going to be Chris Jennings for Axis Sim Sports as they get the formation lap underway, albeit there's a lot of rain in the atmosphere, so therefore it does mean that the pictures that you're seeing in the background are not too clear at the moment. But Chris Jennings starts in 11th there, best of the rest ahead of Steve Codman for Track Mouse Racing, who's got some work to do in the race in number 5. Ryan Penny begins day 13th overall for Oris Racing, or what is 5th in the AM class, just ahead of Matthias 10 for Fury Sim Sport, completely opposite end of the spectrum today, struggled in qualifying, and the Dutchman is not alone in that regard, because after Niels Kula, who starts 15th for Axis Sim Sports on his return to the grid after missing round 2, we'll then do see from the Latvian driver, it's going to be fellow Dutchman of Dennis Van Beelen for Chicane Online Racing, who struggled as well in qualifying and starts 10th for the pros, 16th overall, and he's got a lot of work to do. Martin Rendell, after seeing the car in pieces towards the end of qualifying, has got it repaired. Number 33 starts in 17th, just ahead of Gary Toole for GST Motorsport, and then from what was less than a tenth separating them, it's going to be almost 2 tenths to Paul Goffin for SRM in 19th place, the man who took victory in the AM class at Long Beach, but right now victory will feel a very long distance away in 19th. Completing that top 20 is going to be Kim Such in the number 29 for Oris Racing. Then we do see outside your top 20, Rob Sharp, other winner in the AM class from our season open. He starts 21st for Oris Racing. And I do believe quite a bit of rain on his holiday, so therefore he'll be used to the format of the rain right now, but can he use that experience to his advantage? And he's going to be in the company of Ollie Carwadine for Rome Worthy. And then on the final row of the grid, to complete your top 24 drivers, is going to be Matty Wild for DCW Racing and Jules Gardner for Sim Racing Magazine. So that's how they all line up today, ladies and gentlemen. They're all itching to go. Jules Gardner, the only driver not to get a qualifying lap together, but I think opting to start from the back of the field there, given the conditions, and there's nothing wrong with that, to be fair. Perhaps he's going to be one of those drivers who could surprise us over the distance by just simply staying out of trouble, and that is one way to deal with a wet weather race. But as we can see, the long distance shots on the blimp camera not very clear, but we are still seeing some rain falling here. Looks like that rain is not going away as quickly as perhaps we anticipated based on the forecast, and as all drivers make the one through, well, this is definitely going to be a wet weather start for our drivers. The wet tyres on every single car. Nobody has dared to dream to drive on slicks for the start of the race, but will we see dry tyres become a theme later in the race, or will we see the challenge only get tougher in the wet conditions? With all that and more, they're not too far away from starting to find out. But meanwhile, we look back here to Niels Kula in the 104 Porsche Cayman for Axis Sim Sports, and well, he'll be happy at the fact he's qualified decently today, given the challenging conditions and a challenging circuit, but he's got some very tough cars to pass in front of him. A Mercedes and a Ford, of Penny and Codman being the first two on the tick list of the AM class, and therefore he's got to try and find a way to assert their power advantage for his cornering capabilities in a Porsche that definitely will feel very good on traction on corner exit. But looking up the road, Ian Anderson, he'll be absolutely pleased as punch with where he's starting third of the AM drivers, and that Aston Martin definitely proving to be powerful by both him and Mark Johnson. But can they convert qualifying into podium finishes? Can one of them take the win? Well, you'd imagine that this man, Mark Johnson, sees himself on pole, sees a row of pros in front of him, and that's what he's got to try and stay with. But as they all make the way down through the last couple of corners, well, it's going to be over to Daniel Perry, ladies and gentlemen, to take us for 60 minutes of green flag racing action here at the VIR circuit in the US state of Virginia. And it's lights out, away we go for our third race of the season as Daniel Perry builds up the speed and they roar the way down the start-finish straight. But as they do, Perry, they're getting a good start as all the drivers right now just trying to safely negotiate the run down towards turn number 1. But look at this, Mark Johnson a little bit sleepy at the start, it would seem, and Lee Berridge looking at the inside immediately. Berridge was quick at the start of qualifying. He's going to immediately go and he can get those tyres switched on soon. Dives up the inside in towards turn 1. Meanwhile, side by side between Ryan Penny and Matthias Tem. Tem on the inside trying to get the move done. But back to Berridge versus Johnson for the AM lead. And right now, Johnson trying to squeeze up the inside into 2. That's not going to work. And Lee Berridge does take the AM lead there, so gets it done nice and early for Boosted Motorsport. But now he's got to try and hold it and wonder how quick Mark Johnson will be. Bit of run wide there. Stephen Codman taking a trip wide at NASCAR Bend, but brings it back on just in the nick of time. But he will lose out to Matthias Tem, who sneaks up the inside. And here comes Ryan Penny. But Penny's now going to go outside to inside, going through what will be the corner, and that's not going to work out. And Penny falls backwards into 13th place. He's had a decent start. Niels Cooler's right behind him. And we have had Chris Jennings have a bit of a fall down the circuit. In fact, we've lost Chris Jennings all the way to the back of the field. We'll get a replay of that when we can. Didn't quite spot that, but indeed in these conditions with the spray going up, a lot of these cars right now hard to discern, but we're doing our best to see where they all are. As they roll the way uphill, Dennis Van Beelen giving chase to Niels Cooler with Martin Rendell behind. So it's been a gentle start from them. Oh, hold up, that's Stuart Reynolds. Reynolds has got it wrong coming out South Bend. It's all gone southward for him, and the championship leader brings his way back on the gold encrusted car, and he heads in towards Oak Tree Bend, or out the inside, and goes his teammate Matthias Tem. Fury Simsport right now not having a happy dandy office whatsoever. Everybody queues up going for Oak Tree, and right now that is a huge change at the front of the field, and suddenly Daniel Perry might just be able to run away with this with Guy Edwards and Niels Core. Meanwhile, trying to find a way to give chase, but will they be able to? Daniel Ostler and Matthias Penslar also following suit. We could have a quartet here fighting for the final 2 podium spots, and if Perry can keep it together over the distance, he may just have a dominant win. He may even take a bigger win in margin compared to our drivers from last time out, but we will have to wait and see whether he's able to really put it all together, as there's a big sideways man for Daniel Ostler as he comes down through 15 in towards Hogped at 16-17. And as he rolls on through, you can see there Matthias Penslar looking to try and sneak away in, but that's not going to work for now as they come towards the end of this opening lap. But what a lap it has been. So after one lap of racing, it is Daniel Perry who leads by an advantage of 1.4 seconds. It was 2.8 seconds, but he did get to Hogpen, so I think he's had a bit of a slide through there, but he still leads ahead of Guy Edwards. Then we have Niels Core, followed by Daniel Ostler in 4th. Matthias Penslar completes your top 5. Lee Berridge, your AM leader, took the lead off of Mark Johnson through the first 3 corners, got the job done, and now he's trying to break away in 6th, but Johnson is 7th behind at 1.1 seconds adrift. Then we do have Ben Idris Abdullahi in 8th place there. You can see him for Satellite Racing in the Mercedes AMG, ahead of Ian Anderson, 30 Rams in 9th, and then Matthias Tem completes your top 10, and right now trying to come through the field. He had a difficult qualifying session, but he looks so much happier in the race conditions by comparison. And best the rest behind 11th place is Stuart Reynolds, the man who started in 2nd place, had a huge off at South Bend, and now is trying to recover things. But meanwhile, we look back to Gary Toole, and with him is Martin Rendell just in front. So Toole here trying to find a way on through, but it's not going to be easy here at this time. And I think right now in the battle of the 2 Porsches, he's got to try and put some mental pressure on. As meanwhile, Dennis Van Beelen have been absolutely swarmed by fellow AM drivers. Ryan Penny and none other Niels Cooler, they're trying to follow him all the way through, and that is going to be, I believe, Ryan Penny and just keeping Cooler at bay. But meanwhile, hold up a second, what's happening here? There's cars off the road. That is Benny just Abdullahi. Matthias Tem's off as well. They both got it wrong. Matty Wild, meanwhile, off camera, has got with a meatball flag for damage to his cars. We'll get a replay of that when we can. I suspect he's hit a barrier coming out of what may be Snake, or alternatively just before it, but we will find out as soon as we can, ladies and gentlemen. It's not gone right for Wild, and well, frustration will abound there. But meanwhile, Matthias Tem trying to keep right now Dennis Van Beelen behind him, and Penny, Cooler and Rendell queuing onto the back of this like a bad rash at the moment, and we're making the way onwards. Our pros definitely seem to be struggling here. Our AMs, by comparison, seems to just be that little bit more composed at the moment. And there's no slight against our pro drivers, of course. When you are the quicker drivers out there, naturally you're always chasing the pace, but sometimes to make the race safe, you've got to be driving actually off the pace, and it's not easy to tune yourself down in these conditions. You always want to go faster, as Van Beelen there gets very close to the back of Tem under braking into the roller coaster. And Well, for him, it's not quite a roller coaster ride, more of a stop. Oh, that goes wrong. That's Niels Keuler going around. The rear of the car comes loose him out a roller coaster. It goes to the grass, and the Porsche driver who missed round number 2 and is looking so good over the course of the opening stage of this race. Right now, it's all into the grass. He's to the back of the field, and Niels Keuler's got it all to do again. You couldn't make it up. He climbed, and then he fell. It's like snakes and ladders, albeit right now we've got no ladder out there. We've definitely got a snake on circuit. But meanwhile, as Matthias 10 makes his way towards turn at number 1, he's got Dennis Van Beelen breathing all over his neck, trying to keep the Ford Mustang driver behind. That Mustang, again, so strong on the straights compared to the Mercedes. And, well, the fact we'd expect that Ford Mustang to really have some difficulty in getting the power down. But if anything, it seems to be the AMG machine, which does have a lot of torque push for those rear wheels with 6.3 litre naturally aspirated V8, which we do believe may be replaced in the coming years, given Mercedes have recently unveiled their latest GT3 Challenger, and that could translate down to GT4 racing. But still, that's outside the simulator. In the simulator right now, Tim and Van Beelen still close together. Looking back up the order, meanwhile, there we see your top 4, and right now, Daniel Perry is not pulling away from Guy Edwards. If anything, I think Perry right now, he's pushing hard to try and break away, but the problem is he's pushing himself too hard to try and make the break early on. Although saying that, through the S's teams, he has just pulled half a second on Edwards. I think it is right now, different parts of the lap, Perry is stronger than Edwards, and other parts it is going to be Edwards who's stronger than Perry, and they are equalising, as Perry is definitely the fastest in the final sector of the lap, and also through the S's, but meanwhile Edwards is very strong through Oak Tree, and also I do believe in the early stage of the lap coming through, was Horseshoe in towards NASCAR. That is a hunting ground there for Edwards compared to Perry, and that's why they're constantly going back and forth with regards to lap time. But as we do see these drivers heading over the crest, we then do see Matthias Pentelar in 5th place. He's fallen a bit off of the top 4, but he wants to try and play a role at some point to get involved, understandably. Looking further back, Stuart Reynolds trying to find his way past, and Am driver in the form of Gary Toole. Can he get up the inside? Well, Toole's going to put the car in the middle of the road there. That's to go slightly defensive, but also just to try and get rid of some of the spray from the car in front. As it ends the brain zone, Reynolds will be up the inside, and Toole here, I believe, is not going to fight it at all. He's going to simply let it go, and that's a good move from Reynolds, moving up a place, as Dennis Van Beelen still trying to keep Ryan Penny behind, and Penny right now literally looking left, looking right, looking centre, and again, the road-worthy Mercedes driver looking strong as Van Beelen goes wide. Does he get it back on? He does, just about. As VIR Stuart Reynolds sneaks his way past Martin Rend, almost goes for a trip out wide at turn 17. As they make the way down the start finish straight, it's all change, and right now, Ryan Penny putting that pressure onto Van Beelen, and Van Beelen's going to feel even more pressure as Reynolds gets it wrong, coming down the start finish straight. Can't see, I suspect. Coming down there, he tanks to the grass, and here comes Rendell looking up the inside, and right now Reynolds down to outbrake the Porsche, try and say to him, you're not coming through. I think Martin Rendell didn't get the memo on that one, and if you're wondering why Reynolds on a quote-unquote straight was able to find the grass, it's because there's a kink in the road, understandably, as you go across that timing line, and the problem is with the spray they're getting off the cars in front, you cannot see where the kink is, so you've got to do it on muscle memory and mental memory, and in the end, unfortunately, that memory not too good for Stuart Reynolds, but I can't blame him for that. I don't think anybody can, and that's where you saw him run wide there, and that's why we did have what was the single file formation start, because of the risk. In a double file formation, you would see several cars potentially running very wide through that kink that starts the lap. But Reynolds back on the road now and looking at go on the attack again as he powers his way onwards. Re-ride on board, looking down over the front of the number 1 car. And right now, the British driver definitely not able to find his way through here, coming up into the S's. But he's very eager to make that impression when he can, as he now really mounts the curbs there. He's not afraid of touching the curbs, even if the curbs there are definitely considered risky. But coming down, well, right now, the number 1 driver close. Can he get closer? Coming towards Oak Tree Bend, the answer is going to be no, not quite. Now, off camera, we have had some drama for Mark Johnson. We are going to get a replay of a few of the big moments from the opening few laps this race shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But as we do leave this battle behind, Stuart Reynolds right now close, but not close enough there to make that pass. It's Gary Toole and Rob Sharp. Well, Sharp has found his way past Gary Toole quite recently, and well, we're going to take a trip back in time towards what was the very start of this race, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed how it all began. So this was how our race began, as we did see our drivers make the way to green flag. So Daniel Perry, he had a good start, but the first thing to note, of course, was the battle between Lee Berridge and none other than what was Mark Johnson as they went green flag racing. And Johnson, he had a bit of a tardy start there, as meanwhile Lee Berridge had a tidy start, you could say, as he went up the inside, snuck all in and went onto the brakes, and then took the lead of the AM class by the time they cleared Horseshoe, albeit both drivers did slide in a little bit door-to-door contact. But I think they'll get away. That's a racing instant. That's cold tyres. But Berridge wanted to get it done nice and early. Johnson tried to come back at him into the Kinker too, but he could not find it, and by NASCAR, it was done. So that happened there, but then what else happened? We had a bit of a moment for Chris Jennings, I do believe, where it all went very wrong at the start of the race. This is what happens to the Axis SimSport Mercedes driver, in fact Ford Mustang driver there, as I correct myself. Came down the hill in towards Hogpen. The rear of the car said no before he could get the power down. He was eager to get on the throttle, but a bit too eager perhaps, and the car just simply went spinning. He had to reverse it back onto the road, or did he go for the 360? He reversed it in the end, so I think the smart call. We then had this big moment for Daniel Perry at the end of lap 1. He was 3 seconds clear at the very end of the lap until this happened for the Paddock Motorsport driver. This was coming out of roller coaster and went very sideways. It snatched on him once, snatched on him twice, and then he was able to get the car back under control, but that's how he lost that lead gap. We then had this on lap number 2 for Matty Wild as lap number 2 got underway. This was coming out of the right-hander just before Snake, and as he made his way through, rear of the car started to go, got the brakes, and at that point he's lost control of the car, gone to the tyre barrier, and it's all in arrears, and understandably that would be a tow to the pits. We had this for Niels Kula on lap number 2. He was chasing after some drivers here coming down through a roller coaster. Went wrong for the AM driver, and the answer is he hit the back of the Mercedes in front of him. I believe that was a Roan-worthy car. Was that Penny's car there? I think it was. Sakula just getting a little bit too close, and that explains what happened. We didn't quite see that contact, but I think he tapped the Mercedes, and well, with the ricochet effect, he bounced back onto the grass. And then we come to what happened to Kim Such and Ollie Carwadine towards the end of that lap. And well, as Kula was trying to recover, this was Such making his way on down. Carwadine was a bit further behind, and they're both going to go on around. Well, Such definitely made his way around. Oh, goodness me! Well, I didn't think it was going to end up like that. We came back right into the middle of the road, and in the end, well, Rob Sharp almost ended up in just as much dismay as Ollie Carwadine. So that was definitely not the way they wanted it to go. And well, we had this only months ago, ladies and gentlemen, lap number 4. Mark Johnson, the second place runner in the AM class. What exactly happened to him? From South Bend to Oak Tree Corner into hairpin, the rear of the car started sliding loose, went for the drift on the curb. He got it stopped very well, to be fair, and then got it turned. So well done to him for doing so, but Mark Johnson now losing some critical time. And then we had this for Daniel Ostler. Meanwhile, at the end of lap number 4, he was chasing after none other than Niels Core, made his way down into Hogpen, and the rear of the car stepped loose. And Hogpen now is proven to be a real danger spot there for mistakes. And we'll make no mistake there, he had to keep the brakes on and wait until he could get that car recovered, but that was a long waiting period. We had this as well for Dennis Van Beelen. He's been in the thick of the fight in on lap number 4, and coming down, I suspect this is going to be Hogpen all over again. Same mistake as Daniel Ostler, took a little bit too much apex curb, and that puddle in the inside of the water is flowing down into the apex, catching him out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I think fills us in with regards to all those moments, because we just had this on lap number 5 for Stuart Reynolds. Indeed, there's so many stories out there. And as he made his way on through in towards the left-hander of turn number 2, car completely sideways. And well, here we've got another replay to come, and this was your race leader only moments ago. This was Daniel Perry, who had already built a huge gap because we have had Guy Edwards fall backwards. And well, this is Perry making his way through the S's. Oh my good lord, it went very loose on him, and in the end he just straightened it out. Well done to him for straightening it out on the grass. He will have to serve a time penalty there, and he will take an automated slowdown. And then it all went wrong behind for Guy Edwards, who was very eager to catch up. Too eager into South Bend, and the 6-7 Motorsport drive went completely on around. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've been around the houses with regards to replay footage. We now come back to your live racing, and as we do, the sun is out. So it didn't take too long for the sun to arrive at the end. There's all cars in pieces, meanwhile, including a missing front bumper there for Ollie Carwadine after his moment of going into the side of one of his sideways rivals earlier on that we caught in the replay footage. And right now, Gary Toole, well, he's definitely trying to break away where he can. But what exactly has happened as a result of all this? As we get towards the end of the opening 15 minutes, well, Daniel Perry right now leads. Guy Edwards is into the pit lane early. I suspect this is to go on to the dry tyre. I think Edwards has seen that the sun has come out, and he's going to risk it really early here. Now, is this too soon to go on to dry tyres? Gut feeling says yes, it is, because look at the spray that's still coming off the back of these cars as they make the way onwards. I don't think we're in a zone right now for it to essentially be slick shod tyres, but then again, Edwards is going to take the gamble here. He's got nothing to lose by doing so, other than the prospect of some points for 6-7 Motorsport, but I suspect somebody's got to gamble it, and he's probably said, I will be the one to do it. But in fact, he's come into bits. It has been a short stop. In fact, no, it's just fuel in the car. So, why is Guy Edwards pitting so early, you might be asking? I think I know why. The reason is he's given himself a really large second stint window to work with, because now we are into the round whereby as this circuit is going to dry, this was on the forecast that we would see the rain stop and the sun would arrive and this circuit would start to dry. Where would you rather be? Would you have rather got your first fuel stop out of the way and then give yourself what is a region of, say, 20 to 30 minutes of driving to be able to get to what could be your final pit stop with the crossover a threshold to go from wets to slicks, or do you stay out there right now like all these drivers are doing, minus Edwards, and understandably you're going to run that fuel tank down, but you are then at the helm of your fuel tank, and when you come in say 5 to 10 minutes time, are you able to go onto the slicks then, or do you have to wait and go back onto the wet tyre, and in doing so get it wrong, as we do see two drivers get it wrong there. Lee Berridge almost follows Daniel Ostler off the road for Oak Tree Bend, so Berridge, the AM leaders, up in a full place right now, and well, one more place, and Berridge here could be very much on course for a theoretical overall podium, and well, if he does so, he'll be the first AM driver to ever take an overall podium since the introduction of the AM class. So say it's not so, but meanwhile, Guy Edwards, he's off the road. Where on earth is that? I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that is coming up through the S's and in towards South Bend. So Edwards has gone all the way backwards. And, well, a big mistake made there as he tries to rejoin, but not yet. He's going to have to take his time to rejoin, but it's all gone wrong. It's all gone backwards for Guy Edwards. And that first pit stop in the end, it might have been the right call at the time, but right now it's all gone very much wrong, and I suspect that car may have to come into the pit lane if he's picked up any damage. But meanwhile, we see Dennis Van Binnen and Stuart Reynolds together. Remember, these two have not pitted right now. They've just been involved in incidents earlier on, but particularly Stuart Reynolds, and that's why he's so far down. Van Binnen had a difficult qualifying session, started 16th. He's in 15th, but he has not been able to make all that progress stay. He did pick up several places, but then he's lost them, as Stephen Codman's into the pit lane from 4th place in the AM class, 10th overall, so Codman in. Meanwhile, here comes Reynolds looking side by side, coming all the way towards the end of the lap, and he just gets ahead there. Goodness me, that was tight. And, well, Stuart Reynolds decided to risk it all, and that's 15th. He's now got more places to take as the championship lead as he heads on towards lap number 8. Nils Cooler battling here with Ryan Penny, and Penny on the outside, brakes too late, takes some water on the front left tyre, and it sends him all the way down the hill. He's off to Narnia, and meanwhile, Nils Cooler is saying, send my love to Mr. Thomas if you will. And we can see the Axis Simsport driver has got his teammate Chris Jennings closing up, and Cooler, after that early mistake, coming down for roller coaster in towards Hog Pen. He's now getting things back on the straight and narrow, but he's got to be careful there. You can see what's starting to happen for a lot of these drivers. Nils is no exception. It's now that the circuit is starting to dry. They're getting too confident with the conditions. It's a very interesting balancing act, because as this circuit gets quick on that wet tyre, you do start to naturally gravitate more towards the racing line. You start to think, can I touch the curbs? The only way you're going to know is by touching them, but someone's touched the barrier. That is the Fury Simsport machine of Matthias Tem. Oh my good lord, and that's coming up for the S's. That's missing its rear bumper. The front bumper's also damaged as well. I think that car's going to be taking a trip to the pit lane. Indeed, has got the meatball flag assigned to it now. We're heading for race control, so as he tries to make his way home, well, of course, he's at the furthest point of the circuit almost at this point. If he toes from there, he's going to have to wait an eternity to get it going. As meanwhile, Edwards is into the pit lane after his excursion from pitting. It's all gone wrong for him. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can. And meanwhile, Ollie Carwadine there almost makes his way a bit too wide. And as they all come down towards Oak Tree, and Matthias Tem falling down the order like a stone, understandably. And Paul Goffin right now just trying to keep things together as he brings Sharptall and Carwadine along with him for the ride. The 3 Porsches and Mercedes, which is a bit of an outlier, all running together right now, but this race is continuing to prove incredibly unpredictable. Anything can happen, it normally does in motorsport, and right now we are seeing anything happen at any moment here at VIR. But this wet weather definitely serving to shake things up, and it really is all the game now of just stay out of trouble. Speaking of which, both Lee Berridge and this man, Ian Anderson, your top 2 in the AM class, they are on camera together. Anderson right now doing a very good job, and he's just got to keep this together. His pace is actually quicker than Berridge by the best part of 2 to 3 tenths over the last couple of laps. So therefore, Anderson is starting to sneak a little bit closer. But as I see Jay Decker there saying, it might stop pouring on track, but it's raining replays. Indeed, we're going to have a little bit of a shower of replays to sprinkle on this broadcast very shortly, although we won't get too embroiled in them. Just understanding, ladies and gentlemen, we always love our live action as well, but we do need to bring you up to speed with something goings on as Rob Sharp's into the pit lane. Now, he was towards the back end of the top 10 of the AMs. Is this just a fuel stop? I suspect it is. That car is not up on the jacks. And remember, they can change the fuel and the tyres at the same time, or put the fuel in the car and change the tyres is the proper way to say it. So Sharp has just put fuel in the car. And therefore, it does seem as though he's going to stay with the same set of wet tyres. But I think those pitting just that little bit earlier, what they're trying to do is push their strategy in favour of giving themselves that window to work with the slick tyre. Because the problem is, when you need to go onto the slick, it may not coincide with when the fuel tank's running out, as that's a very liberal use of track limits there from a driver. Who's that rejoin? That's Kim Such going all over the road. Well, the number 29 not looking happy at all there, and I don't blame him for things going a bit sideways. But the Oris Digital car definitely going left, right and centre, trying to get it back together as soon as he possibly can. He is going to fall a lap down. He's already had 1 visit to the pit lane for repair work, and And I suspect this race is going to have a second one as Matthias Tem is into the pits where a car's got a black flag for speed in the pit lane. Oh, goodness me. It's all gone very wrong for the Fury Simsport driver. I believe it's a black flag for speed in the pit lane. If it's not for instant points, then he's going to have to come back into the pit lane soon and do a drive-through penalty as well. So, if you're speeding in the pit lane, it's a stop and hold 30-second penalty. So either way, he is going to be in the pits for a long time, if not making 2 visits to it in quick succession. But with everything happening out there, what is perhaps going under the radar? Well, look to the front of the field, and it is this, your top 2. And Daniel Perry and Niels Core. But why are we focusing on the Satellite Racing Ford Mustang driver? And it's because the Dr. Dabber sponsored machine is currently your fastest car out there by 300ths to Perry in a Ford Mustang. When, of course, in these conditions, you would imagine that Porsche would be the car that you definitely want to be in. But the Ford right now is starting to come into a bit of a presence of its own. They do have a 7.5-second gap over the next Ford Mustang out there of Matthias Pentelar, third place runner overall in Pro. And then it's a further 11 seconds back to Daniel Ostler, who right now, the Fury Simsport Paddock Motorsport driver, trying to keep it all together here as he wants to chase down a podium of his own and covet it. But changes are afoot down the order. Stuart Reynolds has found his way off camera past Chris Jennings. You can see him there very sideways through Horseshoe Bend. And so Reynolds now up into 10th place on the road at least. On strategy, we believe it's 10th place as well. Chris Jennings going a bit deeper there for Axis Simsport, I think trying to find a better line. But Reynolds is trying to drive on the racing line now, and you can definitely see, look at that dry line that is forming. This circuit is drying quite quickly. Now, I don't think we're into slick territory yet, but what we are into the territory of it is the first pit stop. Well, we have already completed what is 20 minutes or so of racing. Now, understandably, when we are in the wet weather conditions, these fuel tanks will go longer because drivers will not be using as much fuel a lap as they would in the dry because they cannot accelerate for as long given the conditions. Means that first stint window is definitely going to open up. Could we see this race turned into a one-stop race? Well, that's a question mark we'll need an answer to as Reynolds dives up the inside there. Martin Rendell into South Bend. Jennings there just about keeps on the road. He sees that Reynolds is going quick and he says, right, if Reynolds can do it, I can do it too. So he's taking a bit of motivation there from the defending champion, but the Axis Simsport driver going very sideways there. Rotary hairpin, and it goes round on him. I reckon that's a downshift from second to first. That's just in the rear. Wheels spin up a bit too aggressively. And unfortunately for Chris Jennings, when it goes, it is gone. There's no bringing that back, given the fact front engine rear wheel drive all the weight towards the front of the car and in a braking zone. That car literally will be riding the front as much as possible. The rear is going to be absolutely as light as a feather, and that's why it's gone so quickly on around. You cannot drive that with the throttle in the end. Once it goes, it does go. Meanwhile, Daniel Perry makes his way in towards lap number 11, yet to pit, but using all the road and plenty more. He's paid for it, so why not? And he discovers why not, because there's a lot of water still on the outside of NASCAR Bend, but he's reopened that gap to Niels Core with an absolutely staggering fastest lap, a 2 minute 0.17. That was 1.6 seconds faster than Niels Core. Well, Niels got close enough to him, and I think Daniel took that personally. Then he's trying to practice social distancing in the wet here at VIR, and well, right now the Satellite Racing driver will need to find a response. But Ian Anderson into pit lane, and as he's being serviced there, fuel going into the car, nothing else changing by the looks of things. So I think he's just deciding to keep it stationary, and now here he goes. So no tyre change for the 455 Aston Martin driver. Instead, it is going to be fuel in the car, go again. So where is he going to fall back out? He will come out behind Paul Coffin and also Ollie Carwadine, and they do have between them there Matthias Tem, who's trying to unlap himself. So this is going to be a very awkward situation for the Fury Simsport driver, because he knows he's got the pace to beat them, but the problem is he's got to unlap himself quickly, because if he does not, then he could be considered in breach of the blue flag regulations, which essentially do say that when you're about to go a lap down, you should assist in facilitating the lead lap car through, which is not to fight it, but hold your line. So it's the responsibility of the lead lap car to make an overtake on you in a safe manner. When you are trying to unlap yourself, if you feel you're the quicker driver, well, if you do get ahead, there is normally a grace period of at least around a quarter to a third a lap. If you can break away and gain some distance from that third a lap, then it will be deemed as though you are able to outrun them. If not, meanwhile, then the stewards will definitely be getting ready to throw the book of stewarding at you. But as he heads up the hill, Matthias Tem right now, sliding all over the road there. He is really pushing it to the limit. He wants to go racing, understandably. He wants to make amends here for being a lap down, but he's got a lot of work to do. But speaking of work for us to do, we've got some replays to bring you, ladies and gentlemen, including what happened to Guy Edwards after his pit stop. So this was Edwards on lap 7. He completed a very early pit stop, only the best part of, 17 minutes into the race. And as he made his way up the hill, lost it into the S's there. The rear let go. He tried to power it through. And in the end, it hit the barrier on the right side. That would collapse the rear right suspension. Then had a double whammy to the concrete barrier. And the car just went spinning around at that point. It would have been absolutely broken on one side of suspension, and for Edwards it was a tow to the pits. We then had this Ryan Penny a lap later. This was Penny trying to make a move on Niels Cooler, but remember what happened? He went onto the brakes here, and as he did so on the outside, found a puddle of standing water. The car went straight, it tried to turn in, and unfortunately he went all the way down the hill. He went further, he went a bit further, and then he suddenly found a way to get the car back on, but that was places lost most definitely. Matthias Tem had this happen to him on lap number 8. And this was Tem coming through the SS sequence, the scene of many a driver's demise today. As he made his way up the hill, well, the car started to come loose. It completely cut loose there through the left-hander. Oh, goodness me, a big hit to the barrier. And the car all coming apart there as quick as that. Went very wrong for him, but then we had this for Mark Johnson on lap number 10. So this was Johnson for Trackmouse Racing, and at the time, trying to keep things as best as possible together. As he came in towards left hook, well, the corner definitely delivered a gut punch to him as it sent him sideways, clipping an apex curb, went to restart, and well, quick reactions there from the Mercedes behind. That was the Oris Digital Mercedes, I suspect that was Ryan Penny, and well, in the end, being able to react just in the nick of time there, and doing a good job. In fact, that was Kim Such, who at the time was a lap down, but Kim doing a brilliant job of reacting. We had this only moments later for Stephen Codman. He was leading the AM class, but what exactly went wrong? And the answer is he took a lot of curb there in towards NASCAR Bend, and the car went sideways. Did he get it stopped? The answer is not quite. Ian Anderson, meanwhile, very good reflexes there to go the other way of him. So good reactions from both drivers there to make sure it did not take both of what are effectively the AM lead battlers out. But in the end, Codman really seen it all go very wrong for him as we come back to your live racing action. So our first pit stop's underway, ladies and gentlemen. It does mean now things are getting very intriguing as Daniel Perry is into pit lane. So is Niels Core, who you'll see park up behind. Matthias Pentelar's coming on down pit road. And Daniel Ostler. They're all making the way on down. Benny just Abdallah, can he go any further? And the fact that we've gone 26 minutes of this race before our drivers needed to come into the pit lane, well, this could be a one-stop here. Although the problem is now that the circuit is drying, it means the fuel usage is going to start to go up. Niels Core comes out side by side here, Perry. He's going to have to go onto the pit exit line there. That may be considered an unsafe exit. We'll have to wait and see if he picks up a black flag for that. But Core almost able to usurp Perry. And will Niels Core only... Well, in fact, it is a black flag. Niels Core has picked up what will be an unsafe pit exit. That is going to be a stop and hold penalty, I suspect, for 30 seconds. So for Niels Core, he almost undercut Daniel Perry, but Perry was not going to let it go. And sadly for Niels, he's lost out there where he's wanted to fight coming out the pit lane. The stewards have said no. The automated stewards, that is. Matthias Pentelar comes out. He's in third place at the moment. He'll be up to second very shortly as Daniel Ostler leaves the pit lane. Now, Ollie Carwadim has yet to pit. He goes another lap in a car that has definitely been a bit bruised. So therefore, he's going to go the all-important 13th lap that may just see him be able to try and turn this into a one-stop race as Daniel Ostler goes round on the inside. But Ostler has gone to the slick tyre. He's put the slicks on. Lee Berridge and Mark Johnson are doing the same as well. And the slick tyre right now, it will have had a little bit of temperature coming out of the blankets in the pit lane. But the problem is he's got to pump heat into that tyre. But to pump heat into the tyre, he's got to drive quick on a damp track. That sounds contradictory as he goes sideways through turn number 2. It's not working. He's into the barrier. The rear of the car falls apart and Willie toes the pit lane. He falls. Daniel Ostler falls by the way side, so the slick tyre is not the right tyre to be on. Lee Berridge, he's gone to the slick as well. I don't believe it. He was leading in the AM class. I think this is a gamble that's gone too far. Paul Goffin has it yet to pit as well. But right now, understandably, with Ian Anderson just having come into the pit lane and just put fuel in the car, that's how he's been able to leap ahead of Lee Berridge. And now so many have let him. He's struggling on slicks. I think it's an inspired bit of strategy, but it's too soon as the car goes round. Coming out to turn number 5 before the stake. He doesn't even get bitten by it this time. It's the rear of the car who lets go. And Lee Berridge making his way back onto the road. He's got to get the heat in the tyres, but he can't drive quick enough to do it. It's only going to get worse and worse as it goes round there on the exit of turn number 6. And for Lee Berridge, this might be a tow to the pits. If it is, it's all over the boosted motorsport driver. He's got to just try and get it to go and hope this circuit is going to warm up, which means right now, in theory, Ian Anderson, once we do see Goffin and Carwadine come into the pit lane, he will be your leader in the AM class here with Stephen Codman. Where on earth has he come from? He has been saving fuel hand over fist. Well, he was only 6 seconds quicker in the pits compared to Anderson. I say only, but that is a staggering margin, and Codman's right back into this race. So I think now the AM battle is between Anderson and Codman, but there is such a big question here. Are drivers going to be able to turn this into one-stop race? I don't think they can, given the circuit is getting so much quicker now. But of course, drivers want to come in. Carwadine comes in. He has gone 13 laps on a single tank. So has Paul Goffin. Are these two going to gamble on slicks? Surely they're not, because if they are, well, right now, understandably, this could be tantamount to disaster unless they come in at the right time, unless it did need to be one more lap. Johnson is out there. He is on the slick tyre. He seems to have got some temperature in the tyre because he's keeping it together right now. But as he makes way onwards, Lee Berridge a bit further behind, who fell behind him as a result of all the big spins. Well, right now, Goffin and Carwadine, the cars are still on wet tyres. They're leaving the pit lane. They have not gambled on going to the slicks. They're playing it safe. I think they've heard what's happened to the free slick runners out there. Ostler is out of this race, it should be pointed out. So therefore, he is retired alongside Matty Wild and Guy Edwards. So we are down now to a grand total of 21 runners on our 24 starters. But as we do see the J Decker brilliantly saying, it feels like this circuit should be renamed Virginia International Raceway. We don't have an inter compound on these cars. Indeed, in most what is closed cockpit racing disciplines, you do normally see there is a wet tyre and there is a slick tyre. There's not normally an intermediate tyre, unlike what you would say in Formula 1, for example. Indeed, we only have the choice of a full wet tyre or a full slick tyre. But understandably right now, all these drivers, well, those who have dared to go on the slicks, they've just got to find the temperature. If they can get that tyre temperature, you are going to see our slick runner, Sonny, come to life. Oh, that's gone round for Mark Johnson, the exit of Horseshoe Bend. And, well, right now he's trying to see if he can get it back together. He does so, and meanwhile into the pit lane. This will not be for a stop, although he could use this to his tactical advantage here. If it is a stop and hold penalty for Niels Core, what it means is he comes into the pits, he parks in his pit box, he takes the penalty, he does not have to go then. If he wants to, he can be serviced at that point. We will see. Although it does look to be, as he weaves his way down, this may be a drive-through penalty. In fact, it may not be as severe. It is purely a drive-through. So Niels Core, unfortunately, by cutting that pit line on exit with his battle with Daniel Perry for the lead, it has cost him the chance to be in that fight for lead. That Matthias Pensalar has snuck through, and Daniel Perry is now 17 seconds clear. But we are into the second half of this race, and now we are into the territory whereby the circuit is getting warmer, and as it does so, grip levels are starting to go up, and the slick tyre is starting to become a fault. It is not an idea yet, it is just a conscious fault, as we do see Dennis Van Beelen there giving it a liberal interpretation of Roller Coaster's exit. I suspect he's gone to the grass there on corner entry. He rejoins his Ford Mustang, and Chris James does come on through there, but unfortunately it's gone very wrong for the 69 driver. But as he makes his way back on the road, dancing from side to side, he's one of our wet runners, and even the wet runners are still getting it wrong. Heading on down, and as he does so, we take a look back at what exactly happened to Dennis Van Beelen only moments ago. So this was Van Beelen heading in towards Roller Coaster Bend. Jennings was behind him at the time, went onto the brakes, and as he did so, car straight line there. Unfortunately, the front end locked up, and understandable. I think he carried a bit too much speed and tried to come down the gears as quickly as he could, but at that point the car was understeering, and that's why he had to straight line it back on from the grass. So not too much damage done to the car perhaps, but definitely a bit of damage to his race time. Back to your live racing we go, and as we do, Gary Tull, he is ahead of Niels Kula. Now Kula has picked up a yellow flag for which track limits. He will have to give a bit of time back. He'll take an automated slowdown penalty, which normally will be in the region of somewhere around about 1 second, depending on where he's cut the corner. And sometimes it's easier to burn that slowdown at certain circuits than it is others. It all depends on what corners you've got coming up, of which Niels there does burn it in towards South Bend. So I suspect he's lifted and coasted rather than picked up any throttle, and he is given the time back. So it is based on your average lap delta, the slowdown penalty, and that's where you never want to pick up a slowdown penalty on the opening couple laps of the race, because there is no lap delta for you, so you will be getting the maximum potential time penalty that's available according to the iRacing system. Whereas later in the race, when you have set some lap time, the shooting system will use the average lap time over the last 5 laps typically or so in order to calculate how big a slowdown you should serve, and sometimes they can be very quick to burn. But as we do see Kula heading up towards the front of the roller coaster right now, well, definitely in the number 9, hoping to keep it nice and clean. And was he chased after Gary Tull? The battle for third place in the AM class is very much on, but Mark Johnson has had another moment. That's coming out of left hook and in towards the right hander of 5. Car's gone round there, still on the slicks. He's trying to find the lap time. Now, to give you an update on Lee Berridge, he's currently setting 2:17s. That was his previous lap. Johnson was a 2:38, but that's because he had several offs. Matthias Tem is into the pit lane. He goes onto the slick tyre. So Tem thinks the time is now to go onto the slicks, and he will be a very strong litmus test for the pro drivers here. If he gets this right, I suspect we'll see all the pros barrel into the pit lane quite soon after, unless anybody thinks it's too risky. Kim Such is in the pit lane, and he's picked up a black flag. Not quite sure whether that is for instant points or whether it is alternatively for speeding into the pit lane, but we will find out when we can, ladies and gentlemen. But right now, this race, whilst there may not be too many on-track battles, although as soon as I say that, Gary Toole right now in third place with GSC Motorsport, and to be fair to him, he's doing an absolutely brilliant job here right now. We haven't seen too much of Gary this season so far, but the 207 driver right now absolutely in a solid spot, and normally one of the things he's known for is his ability to be smart on strategy and to be consistent on pace. Well, Niels Kula right now trying to find a way on through, but Gary's not going to make it easy for him as they get ready to go into the S's sequence. And you can see Kula wants to make the move happen, but in the dry, too wide through here is a no-no. In the wet, it is most definitely in capital letters a no-no as well, as they make their way up towards South Bend. Kula falling back when he needs to at this point because of the fact he won't be able to get a good line through there, but Toole goes a little bit wide, and there comes Kula looking around the outside. But is he going to go for the switchback instead? He tries to lure it out, and Toole in the end simply holds his ground. So Kula there now queues up as we look back on board here with your Axis SimSport driver. Indeed, he's getting very bright out there at the moment as he makes way onwards. The wipers going on there to get some of the spray off, but also to get some debris off the windshield. And as he gets closer and closer here, well, now only the best part of 1.5 tenths. Both drivers in the Porsche Cayman, equal setups here. It comes down to the driver and slipstream for Kula. And as he goes up the inside, what's it going to be? Too wide. But then he backs off early there. He knows he's not going to be able to carry that all the way around the outside of roller coaster bend to get the inside of 15. And Toole is successful in defending. But that buys Stephen Codman an extra 3 tenths of time. The man who's running in second at the moment, here he is, as he makes his way past our camera at the exit hog pen. And Ian Anderson, meanwhile, the leader in the AM class right now, still surpassing anybody else in the AM class, it would seem, in terms of pace. But Toole is into the pit lane. I think this is to go to slick tyres because Toole has been looking very quick on the wet tyre. Niels Kula's the quickest currently on the AM class wet runners. So therefore, Toole's in. It's up onto the jacks immediately. Toole thinks it's time to go to slicks. Well, Lee Berridge is not a good gauge of it then because he's doing 2:13 at the moment. Mark Johnson 2:17. So Toole, I suspect Gary Toole is going to struggle initially when he leaves the pit lane just because of the fact he will need to pump some tyre temperature in. And keep in mind, these wet tyres, the optimum temperature is around, if my memory serves me correctly, 50 to 60 degrees centigrade. For what would be your slick tyres, you are looking more towards around about 80 to 85 degrees. I don't have a narrow operating window, but there is an optimum temperature range which is around there. Indeed, 10 degrees centigrade higher or lower is absolutely fine, depending on track conditions, but you will not want that track temperature, or the tyre temperature I should say, to go below 70. If it does, that tyre is going to lose its grip very quickly. So it comes off the jackets at around 60 degrees centigrade, and at this point now, he comes out of a pit lane that's got a lot of water on the exit of it, so that's not going to help the tyre temperature, but at this point he's got to find that dry line, as he does have Matthias Tem go around the outside of him. Tem is also on the slick tyre, and that's going to help Toole out massively here because he'll be able to use the pro driver as his pace car, but not when that happens. Coming out to Horseshoe, and it's all happening again, this time for Gary Toole. Eager to go onto the slick tyre, but unfortunately the slick is not the right call. Can he get it out of the grass? He does so, but he struggles to bring it on. Lee Berridge passes him. Berridge now moves onwards. Berridge's lap time that time around a 2:11.74, so almost matching Carwadine, a 2:10.25, but the fastest for your AM wet runners at the moment would still be Niels Kula and Ian Anderson, 2:06.7s, and in fact Rob Sharp, 2:06.49, so we are still in wet territory, at least for now. Stuart Reynolds is into the pit lane, and I don't believe this. Reynolds is back into full place for everything that's played out. He's still got a long gap to close to Niels' score of 26 seconds, but Reynolds is absolutely come back through the field here, and with a 2:04.92 that last lap, and Daniel Perry 2:04.44, Reynolds has got leading pace. The only problem is he's way too far down the order here to potentially be leading the race right now, but he comes up onto the jacks. He too goes to the slick tyre. And what does he know that the others do not know? Because so far, everyone who's gone to a slick tyre has had the car go round to them on the exit of what's either been Horseshoe or alternatively turn number 5, just before the snake. Daniel Perry right now, well, given he is the leader and he is 20 seconds clear of the next driver, who is Matthias Pentelar, you can understand that right now Perry does not want to come in until everybody else has come in. That's the great thing that Perry does have as his advantage. With such a gap there, you can essentially right now wait until everybody else has gone to the slick tyre, the majority of the field has gone to it, or at least the drivers behind you, and then then you can go, okay, well, I've lost 7 seconds of time as Mark Johnson gets it right at the rear of the picture. He's going to lose even more time as a result of that. And as he does so, the point being right now, Perry has so many aces up his sleeve, he's got time to sacrifice. Meanwhile, Stuart Reynolds does not. As you can see him weaving out the pit lane. He's trying to get a little bit of sidewall temperature into that tyre. Johnson has picked up a black flag for track limit, so he does have a trophy penalty he's going to serve. Well, does Reynolds pass the test here of turn number 1? No, he gets it wrong as well. They're all getting it wrong. Turn number 1, that slick tyre just does not have any temperature. They eventually do seem to be able to get out to temperature, but not as they come out the pit lane. Indeed, right now, you would think this was deja vu. We've seen that 5 times for his 5 slick runners in recent history, but Reynolds gets himself back on the road, and now he'll be thinking to himself, right, I've got to get this done, but look at that line as he makes his way through NASCAR and in towards the left hook. That is drier than, well, I'm not quite sure what metaphor I'm going to use here, ladies and gentlemen, but as he makes his way on through right now, that is drier than a set of crackers that have not had any butter put on them. That's probably the worst metaphor I'll ever give you, and well, you can definitely tell my mind's gone to food with that one. But as he makes his way onwards, the number 1 driver here, heading on down, now he's got to try to heat those tyres up as much as possible, and I hope this circuit gets even dry, because there is a dry line, but also one of the big things we haven't talked about is what happens when he needs to pass somebody. And the problem is when he does need to make an overtake, well, if his rival is smart and they're on the wet tyre, what they'll simply do is just park their car on the dry part of the circuit and force the slick-shod runners to have to drive on the wet part of the circuit to make an overtake. And well, you know the probable answer to that one. But as Stephen Codman makes his way into the pit lane, currently 3rd in the AM class, well, he was 2nd, in fact, because Nils Cooler's come through. Rob Sharp now comes through. But Codman is going to see whether for Trap Mouse Racing, this is the right time to go to the slick tyre. Now, his teammate, Mark Johnson, will have probably told him several times it's not, but Stephen's got other ideas here, and the fuel tanks are now starting to run low as well. So it does mean we are expecting pit stops at some point soon, but this is where things get tricky, because the circuit's not dried up enough yet to make the slick tyre the optimum tyre, but we are getting closer to it being the optimum tyre. We are probably, if I had to guess, about 5 to 6 minutes away from the slick being the optimum tyre, or the transitional tyre. So it does mean now for these drivers, they've got to try and get these fuel tanks to go that little bit longer. They've got to get as close as possible to around about 12 to 14 minutes left in the race. If they can do that, they may be safe to go to the slick. Codman has gone earlier than that point, we believe, so as he makes his way on down the pit lane. Will we see it become 6 from 6 here? Will he experience the horseshoe spin, as we're now going to dub it for the rest of today? And the answer is going to be, can he make his way on through there very gently at first? Can he get that Mustang to keep it cool? He's taking a little bit of a wider line there, builds up the traction. He does survive a little twitch on exit, but that's the sign now. If he can do that, the slick tyre might be starting to come into an end of its own. Nils Cors in as well. And keep in mind, of course, that Codman is almost a lap down the leaders, hand-pitted, and Cors in. He gives up what is the chase of 2nd place from Matthias Pencelar, and he's now going to go to that slick tyre and hope that this is the right call, as Pencelar on a 204.736 is definitely lapping quickly, but the fastest driver out there at the moment is Daniel Perry with 19 minutes to go, and with 203.07 being his lap quite recently. With Perry absolutely flying at the moment, but the problem he's got, as you can see it there, he has to pull onto the wet patch. His tyres now overheating. Now, it's not a major problem initially when the wet compound overheats. What you're essentially doing is you're wearing away the tread blocks quicker and quicker. They will wear down naturally in wet conditions when the tyre is in its optimum temperature range, but you understand we do not want to wear the tread down too quickly, because it can lead to the wet tyre blistering quite aggressively, and then suddenly you end up with what is a slick tyre that's got no life on it. You're essentially going to be running down to a rim almost, and that's the problem. So therefore you're going to see him on several occasions pull over to wet patch of the circuit to cool the tyre. Of course, all these cars do have digital temperature gauges for what is the inside core of the tyre, which they can bring up on the driver dashboards, and he'll be looking at that. As meanwhile, here's a change of foot as Nils Cor gives up a spot to Dennis Van Beelen, who is yet to take his 2nd pit stop. But Cor makes his way on through here. He's on the slick tyre now. Does he manage to do what we saw Codman do only moments ago, which is survive the opening corner? Yes, he does. That looks even more composed there. But to be fair, we know that he's one of the smartest out there when it comes to gauging conditions, and Cor in place. But Ian Anderson under pressure here. Anderson's got the company of Nils Cooler. Where did that come from? And the answer is, well, Nils Cooler's come out of left field because Anderson's had a previous poor lap. 3 seconds slower by comparison with Cooler on the previous lap, and we've got a replay to explain. But Nils Cooler is into the lead lead of the AM class here. You couldn't make this up. It is all chop and change. Daniel Perry, as I look at my commentary booth window, is making his way on down the pit lane as well. So Perry's in for the lead, and with a 21.5 second gap to Matthias Pentelar, I think he feels as though the time's right to come in. If Nils Kor's coming in, he's probably thought, well, I should come in as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Pentelar into the pit lane soon, although he has just gone past my commentary booth window to go on and take the lead of the race. And so Matthias Pentelar will at least lead a lap today, as they are putting slicks on the car of Perry. I mean, on your camera, this is Nils Kohler, who has passed Ian Anderson. And what exactly triggered this, I hear you ask? Well, here's a replay that helps explain. So this was Ian Anderson currently leading in the AM class, with Kohler chasing him down, went into the opening corner. Remember, he's on wet tyres and went a bit too deep. And in the end, just took a bit of a trip, as Nils Kohler in the end was catching him quite verbosely. So in the end, as Anderson tried to get it back together, well, Kohler was absolutely flying, and I suspect that Anderson had something else go wrong a little bit later, because that gap suddenly came down very aggressively. Now, what exactly happened to Anderson after what was that initial mistake? Well, nothing initially there, and as they made the way in towards what was turn number 19, it seemed to be he was just struggling for pace, and you can see through there. So it seems though just poor pace from that point onwards. But we come back to your live racing. Idris Abdullahi into the pit lane, Rob Sharp's into the pit, and Martin Rendell comes on down. So does Dennis Van Beelen. So Nils Kor will now be promoted back up the order. So the slick time's the right one to be on. Daniel Perry right now in second, and he is the best part of, I believe, 37 seconds behind Matthias Pentelar. Now, if you did want to throw a complete spanner in the works, if you wanted to risk it all, if you were the RD Sim Sport driver who's leading, if you felt as though those wet tyres could survive another 15 minutes, you would come into the pit and you would stay on them. The only problem is, of course, that eventually those slick tyres are going to be so much quicker, it would be perhaps an unnecessary gamble. But you never know, to be fair. Perhaps he feels as though the window is right, as the fastest lap of the race goes to 58.81. We're in slick conditions, no doubt about it right now. Stuart Reynolds absolutely blisteringly quick, going 6 seconds faster than the previous best lap, and suddenly the slick tyre is the tyre to be on, no doubt about it. But as drivers are trying to renegotiate each other at the moment, and Matthias Thames trying to carry on, we've got drivers who are a lap down, we've got drivers that are 2 laps down, you name it, they're those laps down, and right now we've still got some pit stops to play out. Speaking of which, can we show you who has made 2 pit stops and who has not? The answer is yes, we can. There you go on the timing tower, and what we can see is your 2 stoppers. We are not expecting them to pit once again. The exception perhaps being none other than Matthias Temmet and Kim Such, who have had to make extra visits to the pit lane, although my memory's a bit foggy with Kim Such, but I do believe Tem definitely was the case. He had to come in. Well, that may have been a drive-through penalty to be fair, but we will see. As he heads onwards, for the most part, you can assume anyone who has completed 2 stops has made all their trips to the pits, and it's those on the 1 stop who we believe have got 1 more stop to go for fuel as a minimum. But the tyre change, well, is always optional. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements, and if you think you can do the race on those wet tyres all the way to the end, well, for Matthias Pentelar, it is an open door opportunity, as Ian Anderson comes in from 2nd place the AM class. Lost the lead to Nils Kohler, but he's now going to go onto the slick tyre. He will undercut Kohler if he does so, and he may be able to gain that time back. Kohler was the best part of 4 seconds ahead when he came into the pit lane. 4 seconds can be very quickly made if he picks this change over right, because Kohler still on the wet tyre at the moment, with Mark Johnson trying to unlap himself from behind. Well, the problem is right now, Johnson has definitely got that slick tyre up to temperature, and at this point he'll want to get on through, so that's not going to help Kohler at all. Now, Kohler does have the authority to dictate the race in line here. He does not have to give way to a lap-down driver. He can be absolutely obstinate and essentially say to Johnson, look, there's no way through for you because I'm leading in the AM class, and Johnson will have to respect that. He will not be able to assert himself unless he feels like he can dive. If he does so and gets it wrong, well, Nils understand he'll be going to the stewards room afterwards, and there will be a few obscenities there. So, for Nils Kohler, right now, he's just got to focus on what he can do, which is hold his line, expect Johnson to be respectful, which, to be fair, Mark is definitely one of the most respectful drivers you can have on a racing grid, especially here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, and we're just going to wait and watch. But as Anderson's come out on the slick tyre, so he's completed his stops, we do have Penny and also Carwadine in. Martin Rendell's moving back up the order, and Rob Sharp's moving back up the order, and Anderson goes deep there. He loses the place to Lee Berridge as he makes way deep on your pictures there through Horseshoe, and Berridge is now effectively up into what we believe, where's this 2nd place? No, it's not, because Berridge has only taken 1 stop so far, and Stephen Codman, in fact, well, he's been able to sneak his way through the field, so in the end, the gamble to the slick tyre, yes, it all went wrong early on, but in fact, he was able to get some tyre temperature, and now he's benefiting the rewards. But is he going to beat Nils Kohler? That's the last question here, and right now, if you're Nils Kohler, I suspect the Axis Simsport team are going to be screaming at him on the radio, saying, you need to come in, you're at risk of losing the lead right now. Will he come in at the end of this lap? No, he's going another lap. The only thing I can imagine here is perhaps he's literally going to see if he can get to the end now on a wet tyre that is definitely going to be feeling very hot. He immediately dived there to the pool of water on the right-hand side. But as the wet runner makes his way on down, well, for Nils, if he is going to stay out or if he's going to do a quick splash and dash, he's got to really pace us now. He cannot afford to push that tyre too aggressive. If he does, it is going to get so warm in the end that I think he's going to be on a very poor tyre at the end. The good news he has at the moment is he does have what I believe, doing the mental mathematics out there, he does have a 55-second gap as car rejoining the road there. That's Ollie Carwadine, who's had a run-off at NASCAR Bend. But as Wentworth Nils Cooler, he does have a 55-second gap to Stephen Codman, which over 12 minutes, even when you are doing 6 or 7 seconds a lap faster laps compared to leader, you've still got to go some. That's not going to be enough time. But when Stuart Reynolds puts a 55.593 together, well, given the fact that Cooler's lapping in the 202s at the moment, if Codman was to start lapping around about what could be the 55s, he might have a distant chance to this, albeit he would need Cooler's pace to really drop off. So right now, Nils has just got to keep it together. Meanwhile, for Stephen Codman, he's going to have to go all in, as Codman does now set a personal best of 59.251, but he needs more. And Lee Berridge is going even quicker. Berridge was a whole second fast that time round, as meanwhile, it's a black flag for Stuart Reynolds to track limits, and that's going to see him have to take a drive-through penalty within the next 3 laps after it's been awarded to him. So he'll be on this lap or the 3 after, so therefore, it does mean that for Stuart Reynolds, he's going to be sent all the way down the order. And after this recovery drive that's been an absolute episode, well, I can tell you right now, he's gone from a very good episode of racing to an absolute nightmare one here. This is not the end of this race that he wants. That's going to put him away from Nils Core, the pro that he's been chasing after for what has been the last couple of laps, and is on course to overtake very shortly. Given his pace here down the backstretch, I think this is going to be a question of when it's going to happen, if not if, as he makes his way onwards. Well, of course, going to be safe for now. That Ford Mustang is no slouch on the straights compared to the Mercedes. But understandably, if Reynolds has got the drive-through, does he actually go for this move at this point? Does he actually think it's worth it? And I think the answer is going to be no. There's no point forcing it, because you're going to lose the place immediately. And it's not though his teammate Matthias Pentelar is going to gain when what is it not Matthias Pentelar, none other than Matthias Tem, I should say. Getting my Matthias is mixed up when Matthias Tem is all the way down in 20th place. But with all this playing out, well, Matthias Pentelar has yet to pit. And that's why he's on my brain, because he is still leading this race, the RD Sim Sport driver. He's done 1 stop. He's on wet tyres. They're definitely well past their prime. And right now, Daniel Perry is catching him at the best part of 5 seconds a lap. Well, the problem is 26 seconds a gap. And on this lap, well, we're on lap 24. Do the quick mathematics here. We are expecting it to be at least another 4 laps, if not another 5. So, can Pentelar hold on at this rate or not? Perry's going to be close in that final lap. He would not be close enough. Reynolds completes his drive-through penalty for track limits, and as he makes one out, or instant points we should really say, but we always normally refer to it as the track limits penalty, unless he's had several contacts, of which he's not had any. And Rob Sharp comes on through. Hold up, where's Ian Anderson? There's Anderson getting it wrong out the final corner, so Anderson's gone around. What on earth has happened there? The driver was looking so good over the course of the race. It's gone from good to great to superb to bad to disaster. And what exactly has been the cause of the disaster? Here's a quick replay to explain. So coming on down through Hogpen with none other than Rob Sharp right behind him, made his way on the exit, and the rear of the car just started to slide, and at that point he was at the helm of the car, and was the weight hit the barrier, they're going up the banking. It sent him all the way round, so 10 out of 10 for the spin, but unfortunately for him, that's going to be a damaged car and not a happy car to drive for the rest of the day. Really unfortunate for Ian Anderson, because for what is our driver in the 455, it has not gone right at all, and well, thankfully the car's still running there. You've got to feel for him, as meanwhile Matthias Pentelar has come into the pit. The fuel tank couldn't go long enough, and in the end, whilst he does literally just put a splash and dash in, hold up a second, where's Nils Cooler going? That's Nils Cooler going down the hill. He's taking to the escape grass there. That's a roller coaster. The AM leader is trying to hold on. Well, that's going to be the longest trip he's taken off the road, and it's a meatball flag as well. Well, I don't think he's going to get that car to the finish unless he tries, but that car's wounded. It's all over. The dream could be very much in bits right now, and indeed, I think that car has completely collapsed on the left-hand side, and well, here comes Nils Cooler through, but where is Lee Berridge? Remember, we do have a fast repair out there. Which means, suddenly, if Niels Kula can get to that pit box, he may still be in with a chance of this. Kula may still be able to win this, given what's happened. But does he now go to the slick tyre? Well, I think if he's going to gamble on everything, he can't afford to go to the slick tyre. Lee Berridge comes in through, and Kula has had the fast repair. He starts to make his way down the pit lane. Where is Lee Berridge? Where is the boosted motorsport car? It's still coming out of Hogpen Corner. It's not close enough. Kula starts to make his way across the pit limiter line. As he does so, well, Kula's back out in the lead of the AM class. He's used up all his 9 lives at this point. Now he's got to hold on, but look in the rear of the picture. That's Lee Berridge at a 57.30 personal best. And at this rate, Berridge surely is going to be with him within the next lap. By the end of this lap, he's going to be there. It's 2.6 seconds at the moment as they come through Horseshoe. And Kula, after that huge instant, which we will get a replay of shortly, it's all right now on the knife edge. He's going to have to try and hold off a slick shot runner who surely will just be able to drive around him rather than have to be forced to pass him. Stephen Codman, meanwhile, in the rear of the picture there. This top 3 in the AM class is getting so close. Codman is matching, if not surpassing, the pace of Berridge as well. We could have a fight for the win on here between slick runners. Rob Sharp and Martin Reynolds are coming through. And, well, this podium in the AM class is less than certain. I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen, as we believe the only pit stop left is the pit stop for Lee Berridge. He has yet to take his second and what we believe is his final stop. He's trying to one-stop this as Mark Johnson's into the pit lane for his one-stop strategy down in 17th place. Daniel Perry carries in on and goes to a 45.92. So that pace right now is just building. This circuit is drying and drying even more. We have definitely got a circuit that's given all the time. But here's Niels Kula, the AM leader, as he makes his way out of Oak Tree Bend. Well, we'll look at Lee Berridge. Look at the traction he's got off the corner there. There's no comparison here. Berridge right now is going to fly on past him up this straight. The BMW's got the speed as well. But right now, with that traction, well, Berridge will take the lead of the AM class here. But has he got enough fuel to get this done with 6 minutes to go? Remember, it's not when they cross the line when it says 0 that it's over. It's when the leader crosses the line. And that'll be Daniel Perry who dictate the number of laps. But as they battle the way down in towards roller coaster, well, Kula right now is going to make this the most difficult overtake of Berridge's day. Albeit Lee Berridge on the inside into Hogpen Corner here. Kula's going to fight him. He's over the way. A little bit of touch between the two of them. A twitch as well. Kula comes back on, but in the end, I think he's given as good as he's been given as they come on out. Is that well, no, that's Berridge. Berridge is into the pit lane. Kula retakes the lead, and Berridge can't make it go the distance with 5 minutes to go. Berridge has to go, but here comes Stephen Codman. The Axis Sport car holds on. The team will be holding onto their breath in the pit lane right now, but Codman is lapping as well. The best part of 8 seconds a lap quicker. Rob Sharp, meanwhile, has got Martin Rendell over his back. Gary Toole sunny in the picture here. It's a big family reunion at VIR. But as he makes his way on through turn number 1 and up towards turn number 3 right now, well, I don't think all these AM drivers want to be seeing each other. They just want a clear run to the finish. But Sharp's under pressure. Goes a little bit deep into NASCAR Bend, but he just about keeps it together as all our pit stops now will be complete with, of course, Nolan Berridge coming in. He drops all the way back to 13th place. Always 7th in the AM class. My good Lord, ladies and gentlemen. This is literally left, right and centre. It may be over in the battle for the overall win. I think Daniel Perry's got it all sealed and done, and the gaps right now are quite staggering, although Stuart Reynolds has got Idris Abdullahi right behind him for 4th place at the moment. But as we do see the AMs making the way up the hill, well, right now Niels Kula absolutely holding on for dear life. He's on wet tyres that are absolutely burning hot at this point, and Stephen Codman's got slick tyres that are absolutely singing hymns, but he has to take to a little bit of grass there, runs a little bit deep, and Kula's going to make him literally have to grind this out. But coming out the exit, here we go. Kula immediately cuts across the middle of the road, and as much as he tries, I don't think in the end he's going to have enough power down the straight. They switch one side, and Stephen Codman goes the outside, and Codman will take the lead of the AM class. So Codman in the end does find a way past the defences of Kula. Here comes Rob Sharp as well, and Sharp right now trying to go up the inside of Kula, but he's too far back, surely into his roller coaster. And indeed, Codman will take that lead, but the AM field now be held up behind the 104 in its wet tyres. But credit where it's due to Niels Kula. If he had not made that huge mistake, where would he be in all of this? Well, we will get a replay of that very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, to explain what happened. But for Niels Kula, it all went wrong at one brief moment, but it's not over yet, because Codman now will try and run away. Here comes Rob Sharp to move into second. Here comes Martin Rendell to move into third. And Gary Toole's not too far behind, but Rendell wants more. He wants that second place. He wants the win here as they get ready to go onto the brakes for Horseshoe. We can see Kula still trying to go too wide to Rendell, but on that outside line, is there anything left for him to do other than hold on? The answer is it doesn't look like there is. Rendell still attacking as we ride on board the front bumper of your Primitive 33 machine, and we're coming out towards NASCAR Bend here. Well, look at the confidence Rendell has here. He right now is feeling much more confident than Sharp. Sharp, to be fair, I think is just driving safely here to make sure And he doesn't lose out on a chance of the podium as Codman's going a bit deep. Surely Codman right now is not running out of pace at this point of the race, because look at Sharp. He's all over the back and like a bad rash for the technical start of the lap. And I think right now Sharp may have a chance of this. And well, could we see our first repeat winner in the AM Class A? Will Trackmouse Racing be denied victory the third time this season? If so, I won't tell you one thing, it's not just Mark Johnson, it's the whole team at this point who definitely have got the bad lucks over the top of them as they make the way through and towards the end of this lap. And this is absolutely breathtaking race, I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. And well, looking down the outside, Sharp trying to make a move happen, doesn't work there, but Codman right now, he threw everything at it past Cooler, and as a result now the top three of the AM class are all nose to tail together. What can Codman do other than just try to blast off here down the straight? And he will do that in that Mustang. He will be able to just stabilise the gap for a brief moment, but Sharp in the tow within 1.5 tenths there. That's what you've got to be able to gain some speed on the Ford. And here comes the Porsche driver looking up the inside. Will he beat him on the brakes as they come over the horizon? Two in. Will it be too wide out? We'll have to see here. Without a doubt, it's going to be close. Sharp tries to go outside to inside. He almost gets squeezed the apex, but Codman gives him the space. And Sharp right now is going to be on the inside to Hogpen to go to the outside, but Codman backs off there. I don't think Codman's got the grip, and in fact, Codman's going slow. Is he struggling with fuel here? Is Codman having a fuel save right at the end of this race to make it to the end? Because he's just completely given up that battle. I think he is. Now, Codman did come in on lap 18, much earlier than everybody else. I think Codman's got a fuel issue here. I don't think he can get to the end of the race by pushing. As Gary Toole sweeps around the outside of Niels Cooler for fourth place in the AM class. We can see an all Porsche podium here, but Cooler's not done yet as he looks at the inside of the GT4 Motorsport car, gives it a tap on the rear end as it's going to send Toole wide. And Cooler, I don't think he's got any grip left on those tyres. And well, it's going to see their battle come to a halt as Toole will rejoin. I think Cooler apologised for that one after the race, but I think the tyres on that Axis Simsport car have just completely worn down, at least based on that camera angle that we see. But of course, the driver's got different perspectives, as have the stewards, if it does get taken to the stewards afterwards. But whilst all this is happening, while race leader goes on to his final lap, there will be 29 laps here today, and Daniel Perry for Paddock Motorsport right now with a 53.97. Well, nobody has reached the 53s as of yet, but he's found them, and right now he's cruising to victory with Matthias Penslar on wet tyres, I should point out. He's been on these tyres since the start of the race, and he's boiling the hot conditions now for the tyre. He's still second. He's 26 seconds clear of Niels Core, and he is lapping what is in the end 7 seconds a lap slower compared to the slick runs at the very front of the field, but he won't mind because he's very safe at this point. But what was not safe earlier was this for Niels Cooler, and this is what saw the AM leader fall apart when it was all looking to go his way with the gamble on the wet tyres, and we're in towards what was the roller coaster, came in too hot, and in the end just went straight on and straight to the barrier. And that explains it. Too much momentum and the car just having no traction to brake. And well, the Axis Simsport car, they're going straight in. And the rest, of course, we have seen it has become history here today. But, ladies and gentlemen, with our clock striking 0, our leader, Daniel Perry's onto the back straight. What's happening for the lead of the AM class? There's Sharp, there's Rendell. They've got one more lap to go. As Benny just Abdullah, he's into the pit lane. He's run out of fuel. I think we're a lap to spare. I don't believe it. Here he comes on down. Ian Anderson, meanwhile, trying to find his way past Cooler for 5th place in the AM class here. And what will be 10th overall. A lot of AMs are going to take top 10 finishes overall today. Yeah, they're going to get a huge injection of what will be overall championship points. This is unprecedented for our AM class. But as we see Anderson trying to charge his way on past Cooler, as he tries to make that move happen. Meanwhile, for Daniel Perry, he took pole position here today by almost 7 attempts. He got the calls right on strategy. He was the maestro in the wet. He was the master of the pace in the dry. And for Daniel Perry, it is victory at VIR. He is the first driver to break the deadlock that Stuart Reynolds had on victories overall for Paddock Motorsport. Matthias Penslar will be a degree away, but for Daniel Perry, that's going to be a memorable one for all the right reasons. Chris James comes on home a lap down in 14th place, just behind Lee Berridge, who will take 7th in the AM class. But meanwhile, as they all come through, what about our 15th place runner Paul Coffin? He'll drag race Ryan Penny to the line, but who's going to get it? It's going to be Penny who outruns him there for what will be 8th in AM and 15th overall. But behind them, Matthias Penslar on the wet tyre will survive in the end. He started 6th, and in the end, somehow, some way, the pro driver makes home 2nd place today. And then we've got a bit more time before more drivers come through, ladies and gentlemen, as we do see a bit of a cool down there for Coffin and Penny. But Niels Core makes his way now down through the last couple of bends, and as he does so, well, just up the road, Mark Johnson comes along in a consolatory 10th place now, 17th overall, just ahead of Ollie Carwadine, and then you will see 3rd overall on the lead lap. Here is Niels Core, who in the end holds off, or does he? No, he runs out of fuel right at the end of the line. I don't believe it, and Stuart Reynolds takes 3rd place. They're literally at the finish by just simply having the fuel to get to the end, and well, Niels Core drops back to 4th. But meanwhile, whilst all that's going on, where is your AM leader? Here he is in 5th, Rob Sharp, and we won round number 1. He took a break in round number 2, and I don't think he's going to quite believe this because he's back to winning ways immediately here at VIR. Rob Sharp wins in the AM class in a terrific race-long battle. Martin Rendell comes home for his best result of the season, 2nd place now, 6th overall. Stephen Codman rounds off the AM podium there, just ahead of Gary Toole, who takes 4th in class, 8th overall, and the GST Motorsport trial then be followed up by Ian Anderson, who at one point was on course to win this race, but 5th in the end, his best result of the season, 9th overall, and known as more work to be done, with Dennis Van Beelen 10th, just ahead of Benny Abdullahi, the two of them separated by 2.5 tenths a line, and Niels Kula 6th in the AM class. He's just made his way into the pit lane, but he will be 12th overall as well, and you've got to feel for him. That gamble on the wet tyre almost worked until that huge moment going into the roller coaster, but as our drives cool them down, ladies and gentlemen, I think I can finally take a breath from this one. My good Lord. This season just keeps on giving. I mean, round number 1 had plenty of fighting at the front of the field at Imola and also on strategy in the AM class. Round number 2, we saw the AM top 4 come together, separated by only 2 seconds at the finish line. And today, the pros at the very front, everyone kept us guessing on what was the right corner strategy and running out of fuel towards the very end. And in the AM class here, well, ladies and gents, I can tell you one thing. If we've got this for another 5 rounds, we're going to need a stunt double here in the commentary booth or I'm going to need an oxygen mask, because this is absolutely incredible racing for all the right reasons. And if this has not been an advertisement for why the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge is the place to be, I don't know what is. But as our drives all cool and calm and down, let's take a look at those race results subject to any Stuart's inquiries. And as we can see in the end, ladies and gentlemen, round number 3 of the SRM GT4 Challenge Season 8, brought to you in iRacing and proudly sponsored by Oris Digital, was all about the transition from the wet to the dry. After a waterlogged qualifying session, our drivers had to contend with a drying circuit that gradually improved and then very rapidly came to life as the sun came out. But the driver who got it all together, he joined all the dots together and put the jigsaw pieces in place, was Daniel Perry for Paddock Motorsport by 36.2 seconds in the end over RD Simsports Matthias Pentelar. The Flying Finn, in the end, in the number 12, gambling on staying on the wet tyres all the way to the very end and managed to make it count. Stuart Reynolds, meanwhile, he will be very grateful that he used up all his 9 lives, and I think the 9 lives of the next race to make his way back to 3rd when it all went backwards at the start. But Niels Core run out of fuel right towards the finish line, only 75 metres to go, and Reynolds was able to steal away that 3rd place at the checker flag. The Fury Simsport driver was then, therefore, only what was less than a second ahead of Niels Core. The Satellite Racing driver in 4th place. Those are pro drivers, and then your AM winner, Rob Sharp for Aburis Racing. I can only imagine what he's going to have to say in a post-round interview if we get a chance to chat with him. He's going to have 101 stories to tell about the one. I don't think he's going to be able to even make a comprehensive sentence out of this one. I don't think anybody can in the AM class, to be fair. But the Scotsman taking 5th ahead of Martin Rendell, who just missed out on his first win, but took his first podium of the season there, less than a second behind. The prior tier was followed up by Stephen Codman, who completed the AM podium at 7th there for Trackmouse Racing, and where all slipped away, and it almost came back to him at the end of the day, but it just wasn't quite to be. Gary Toole in 4th for the AMs, 8th overall for GST Motorsport, a brilliant result there, his best of the season thus far, and Ian Anderson really showing the best step forward there early on in the race. Unfortunately, that big mistake cost him dear, but the See You Next Tuesday driver definitely going in the right direction, and inside the top 10 overall today, he'll definitely take confidence in that. Dennis Van Beelen, 10th, a good recovery driver for the Chicane Online Racing drive in the 69. And Ben Idris Abdullah, he was best dressed in 11th on a recovery drive that didn't quite come together for Satellite Racing's number 2 driver. And then we did see Niels Kula there in 12th place, trying to hold on the wet strategy with that huge shunt to the barrier with only what was a grand total of 15 minutes or so to go. Really scuppering what would have been his attempt at Matthias Pentelar's strategy and what could have been a guarantee of a first win of the season in the AM class. Still, the Axis Simsport driver was your last lead lap finisher ahead of Lee Berridge of Boosted Motorsport, who after his heroics early on, unfortunately saw himself finish a lap down in 13th, and then Chris Jennings for Axis Sim Sports and Oris Racing's Ryan Penny complete your top 15. Outside the top 15, let's not forget about them. Paul Goffin in 16th ahead of Mark Johnson, with Ollie Carbadine, Gilles Gardner and Kim Such completing the top 20. Such finishing 3 laps down there for Oris Racing. And then we did sadly have what was a few retirements. Matthias Tem out of the race in the end with 5 laps to go, but he will be classified. And behind the Fury Sim Sport Drive, we did have earlier retirees who will be non-finishers of this race. Daniel Ostler, Matty Wild, and Guy Edwards. So that was how the 24 finished overall. But how exactly did the AMs finish, I hear you ask, given the fact we do have our AM Championship, and the points will be adjusted for the AM class based on these positions. And as we can see, Rob Sharp there, taking 2 wins. He's won every race he's participated in so far in the AM class for Oris Racing, ahead of Martin Reddle, who was 9 tenths behind at the finish line. Stephen Codman, third there, a first 6 seconds adrift, but ahead of Gary Toole by the best part of 3.3 seconds. And the GST Motorsport Stripe being followed up by Ian Anderson, the first 5 seconds behind, and a very close top 5 all said and done. Niels Kula struggling home in 6th place there for Axis Sim Sports. And his story being followed up there by the struggles as well for Lee Berridge of Boosted Motorsport, who in the end did have to come into the pits right at the end when it was so tantalisingly close to potentially stealing away the win on the one-stop strategy in the AM class. The AM class, he was 5 minutes away from that strategy being a perfect one. Still, it was worth the gamble, and Ryan Penny, meanwhile, gambled plenty of times by going sideways today, but the Oris Racing try needed to go straight at some point and it didn't quite work out. Paul Goffin took 9th place there, your winner from Long Beach, not able to recreate that or finish on the podium, so therefore it's back to the drawing board of the Sim Racing Magazine driver, and Mark Johnson completing the top 10 there for Trackmouse for Racing. Ollie Carbadine, 11th for Rome Worthy, ahead of Gilles Gardner for Sim Racing Magazine, and it was 2 laps further down for Oris Racing's Kim Such, and we did see a retirement for Matty Wild there for DCW Racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that's a rundown of the results, and we have not quite completed today's broadcast, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time, we're going to catch a word or two from some of our volunteer drivers and get those post-round interviews. And, well, they are going to be full, I think, of thoughts on drivers about the challenge day that the WET has presented at VIR, and, well, you've enjoyed it, well, I can see in the YouTube chat there, and do let us know in the interim period what has been your favourite moment of the day, if you get a chance to do so. Otherwise, we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time for interviews and plenty more. So we'll see you very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews. And in a race full of excitement and challenges, well, the driver who conquered the challenge best, of course, was none other than Daniel Perry, who's going to be our first interviewee, and he joins me now in the interview room. Dan, good evening to you, and well, what a race from yourself today. I mean, the story last time out at Long Beach, of course, was that Stuart Reynolds, your sister team rival, absolutely dominated, but here, you were the one to do the dominating. I mean, that's so special for you.
Yeah, good evening, Paul. That was an eventful race to say the least. I think from everybody's perspective, and also from me, I'm sure you probably caught on the cameras. I had a few very scary moments in that one. It was not an easy race, but I think it's safe to say we found Stuart Reynolds' kryptonite there. Make a wet race, and then suddenly he's useless.
Oh, definitely a fight his kryptonite, no doubt about it. But looking to yourself, of course, and this VIR circuit, we did see in qualifying, it took a bit of time for the lap times to really start to come in. How did you find adapting to those wet conditions?
Yeah, well, every single time you go out on the track when the session changes, it's going to be ever so slightly different to the previous one. So of course, your first lap, your out lap, you're going to have the cold tires. And after that, you're going to have to take about 2 or 3 laps feeling out where the grip is, where the puddles are, and sort of feeding a lap together from there. So I think I got my fastest around about lap 4 or 5 in the qualifying session. And then after that, I got really lucky that the rain started to intensify, so nobody could improve, and that kind of guaranteed me the pole that way.
I see. Well, in the end, taking pole position by almost 7 tenths, a staggering margin. And then going into the race, I mean, it looked as though, at least in the early stages, you had things under control. Was that the plan, to push quite hard at the start, grow a gap, and then just settle down?
Yeah, I mean that's the great thing, isn't it, about virtual racing is you can be a bit more brave. So I figured this track has got infinite runoff. I'm gonna have to find the limit. I'm gonna have to find the limit fast, as safely as I could, of course, if I wanted to guarantee my win there. So I pushed hard, probably harder than I should have, and I had a few scary moments, like I said. But then I found my rhythm, and from then on out, is pretty clear running, to be honest.
Now, on those scary moments, I mean, we did see towards the end of the first lap, for example, a big slide coming for, I think it was Hogpen Corner, that saw your lead brought back down. Did that change the way you perhaps approach the circuit? Or do you, as a driver, just simply go, you know what, I've made that mistake once, I just won't do it again twice? You can't be afraid of the circuit, if you will.
No, exactly. You can never be afraid of the rain. If you're going to be scared, then you're never going to drive fast. So you need to respect the rain, of course, and understand that it will spit you off the track if you give it the opportunity. But you need to attack it and show it that you're not scared.
Now, you showed no fear, but as the race went on, what we did see as well was that strategy was going to become an increasing part. Really, from around lap 7, the rain definitely went away. The clouds started to go away as well. How did you gauge when it was the right time to go to the slick tyre?
Well, thankfully, I had a few teammates who were a little bit more brave than I was tonight, so I kind of had the prime viewing and data feedback, shall we say, from the team about how the slicks were doing. Obviously, Dan Ostler, rest in peace to him. He went onto the slicks way too early and found the walls hard. But we did tell him it was going to be too early at that point as well. We could tell at that point the track, it looked visibly dry from the cockpit of the car, but you could tell it was just slippery, even still on the wet tires. And then there came the point sort of later in the race where the lap times were coming down quite quickly. We're sort of getting towards the low 2 minutes, and I could see my tire pressures and therefore temperatures skyrocketing. And at that point, I kind of knew it's time to start thinking about the switchover. And thankfully, Matthias and Stuart did it just a lap or two before me, and then within 2 laps they went, "Yeah, it's dry, go." And then that was it, onto the dry tires.
I see. Well, highly beneficial having the input of your teammates and also being able to see what's going on around you, but also appreciate your point there about the circuit looking deceptively dry when it was not. On the flip side of the coin, we of course saw our second place finisher today, Matthias Penslar, opt to gamble on a two-stop strategy where he stuck with the wet tyre. Were you worried at any point that a driver might try to do that, essentially just outlast you on the circuit?
I'll be honest. I was a bit concerned by his strat. I could tell he was doing something different, but it was something that I had to keep an eye on for sure. Even though he was, when I think I pitted around about 20 seconds behind me, I knew that he likely would do something different. There's every possibility that he'd been able to save enough fuel, obviously with the wet running, to maybe do a one-stop race, which sort of meant that I had no chance to sit back once I got onto the slicks, and I had to push hard to close that gap straight away. So obviously, when he did pit, it was good to see. Big relief from my side, but then obviously very brave call from him, but obviously a call that worked to stay on to his wet tyres and hold him to second place.
Well, it was a gamble on his half, and it did, like you say, yield him second place. And for yourself, you got it absolutely right on the strategy and the tyre choice in the end to be able to make sure you guaranteed yourself the win. So first win of the season now in the bank. It's been a little bit of time coming. Can we expect even more to come in the rounds ahead?
From my understanding, I think the forecast isn't looking too good for Thruxton either, so let's see what I can do there.
Or indeed, Thruxton will be an interesting one. The fastest circuit in the United Kingdom on wet conditions. That's definitely going to be a potent combination. But next time out, of course, it's to take on the Australian mountain of Mount Panorama. How do you feel about that circuit?
It's a bit scary. It's all upside down. Yeah, no, I know the track, and I know I can drive it well, but the Porsche will be at a disadvantage there due to the altitude. The engine just doesn't have the pull that the Mercedes and the Ford Mustangs will have, so it's going to be a bit of a damage limitation round again, a bit like Long Beach was for me.
All fair play. We look forward to seeing how much you can limit the damage potential there, but you never know what can happen until we do head to Australia. But just before we do let you go, Dan, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to live on the broadcast?
Let's just big shout out to the team today. It was a full effort from all of them to get me the result. So Matthias, Stuart, and Dan, the three of them, and at Fury Season Sport, we had to work together to get the best we could for that one. So 1-3 is a really good result from that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Dan, it's been an absolute blast seeing you conquer the conditions today and take your first win of the season for Paddock Motorsport. We look forward to plenty more next time out when we do head to Bathurst. But until then, save for the moment, enjoy your victory, and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thanks, you too.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy Dan Perry, and we're really circling it down to the fact that here today, the great equaliser between himself and Stuart Reynolds is absolutely a razor-sharp Mercedes has been the conditions, but I think there's a lot more to it, and he did really start to talk about the fact. First, he got it right in qualifying. We saw, of course, the circuit reach a peak point whereby the lap times were not necessarily improving anymore, or if they were, perhaps it's because drivers had not quite delivered the lap they wanted early in the session, and Daniel Perry had got that lap done, and that's why he was able to take pole by such an eye-watering margin. But in the race, well, after the early slips and slides that he did have, he was then able to put things together. And he did admit that as he went deeper and deeper into the race, his game plan was essentially to make sure he didn't make any mistakes from that point onwards, and instead just got the strategy absolutely nailed down. And in doing so, well, it worked out very nicely for him in the end, although he was very wary, as he mentioned there, of what was going on from Matthias Pentelar. And in fact, in the end, the RD Simsport driver catching him out with that strategy and wondered if it was going to be a one-stop. It wasn't quite, so therefore he could breathe a sigh of relief, but if it had been a one-stop, it wouldn't have been a victory for Daniel Perry. So therefore, a slight saving grace, but still, he is going to be targeting another win at Thruxton when we do have the wet conditions there later on the season, but expecting damage limitation at Mount Panorama. We'll have to wait and see whether he surpasses his own expectations or not, but that'll be in 2 weeks' time. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come, so we are going to step away for a brief moment, and we'll be back for our second interviewee very shortly. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to hear from our winner overall, then it's only right we should hear from our winner in the AM class. And joining me now in the interview room is none other than Rob Sharp. Rob, good evening to you. And I get the feeling you're going to get quite used to this at this point. Win a race, go away on holiday, come back and win a race. Is it time for another holiday already?
It probably is, yeah. What a great idea. That I have no idea how that happened. What a race! What a track! What conditions! Oh God!
Oh, indeed. Well, let's try and piece it all together, and let's start off with the conditions. Now, qualifying 21st overall, 11th in class. Something tells me that qualifying did not go right at all, or the conditions were very challenging to get used to.
Qualifying didn't go right. No. I got one lap in, and then the second lap was looking better, and I spun, and then the third lap made a mess of, and then after that the conditions got a little bit worse and the track just got slower and there was nothing I could do. I tried Well, then you try too hard and it all goes awry again. So no, 21st. I mean, actually, I mean, yeah, that's a terrible qualifying position. But given the conditions at the start and the run down to turn one, being close to the back was actually, I felt it was a little more relaxing because it didn't have a weight of a huge pack behind me going into turn one.
So feeling quite safe then going into turn one, and perhaps that being an advantage, if you will. And as we saw the opening 20 minutes or so of the race play out, we did see you start to pick up the pace a little bit in these conditions that were not necessarily drying initially, but you just looked a bit more comfortable.
Yeah, you just get into a rhythm, don't you? But I couldn't keep up with Gary and I can't remember who else it was, but they were kind of pulling. I think was it Neil's? Yeah, I can't remember. But they pulled away from me, and you're right. I wasn't doing a bad lap time, but they had the legs on me, I think, during that first stint.
So they may have had the legs over you during the first stint, but then as we went deeper and deeper into the race, what we also got to see there was, of course, the sun come out, and Sunny, it completely threw the race wide open. I get the feeling that you might have been quite happy to see the sun.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I had a bit of a strategy in that I pitted early and filled the tank up so that my second pit stop would be towards sort of the last quarter of the race, because I thought if there's ever going to be a chance to fit dry tires, it will be then. And I didn't want to do it too soon because well, I can't keep the car on the track if it's too wet on slicks. And that actually seemed to work okay towards the end.
Well, a smart bit of strategy there, like you say, to really give yourself a much deeper second stint, and it did play out quite nicely. But now let's talk about the absolute madness that played out in the final stint, because at the time, I believe you were running in, I want to say, fourth, with Martin Reynolds chasing you very furiously in his own Porsche, and then suddenly, third, second, and first are all coming to you literally hand over fist. I mean, could you make sense of it? Was it you're still looking behind at Martin, or are you having to focus on who you passed in front?
I was definitely looking behind at Martin because he was quick. When I came out of the pits after the second stop, Martin was 5 seconds behind, and I thought, well, I'll take it easy the first couple of laps because I know it's going to be a handful, and then hopefully I'll still have a good lead. But no chance. He was right behind me, and I'm not sure how I caught the people in front and got past them, or maybe they had issues. I don't know. I was really concentrating on trying to keep Martin behind and counting down the laps, to see, and I had no idea really where I was until I don't know, 3 or 4 laps before the end, when I suddenly realised I was in fifth and I was the first AM. So crazy.
Oh, indeed, it was absolutely crazy, and I think you summarised it very well. And while highest finish of an AM driver in the history of this series as well, not quite the first AM overall podium. I'm sure that is going to come one day, and whether it comes to yourself or one of your peers, we'll have to wait and see. But looking back on it, of course, today the Porsche looked to be quite a comfortable car as well for these conditions. I mean, we were speaking to Daniel Perry only months ago, saying that you have to be fearless with these conditions. Did you feel afraid at any point of the wet?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yes. Oh yes. Going through the snake, there are puddles at each curb, and I discovered, if you're on the throttle at all, going through those puddles, it's good night Vienna. The car just snaps and you're away. So you have to be. I don't know about being fearless. I was certainly not fearless. I was trying to tiptoe my way around because it's pretty terrifying. You do get into a rhythm, so it's not, you kind of acclimatize to the conditions after a while, but it's not my favorite driving condition in the wet. No.
Oh, fair play. Well, the good news for you, of course, is next time out when we do head to Australia, we're expecting somewhat sunnier skies at Mount Panorama. But of course, it's Mount Panorama. Is it a circuit you enjoy or one that you're afraid of?
A bit of both, I would say. I do enjoy Mount Panorama. It's an amazing circuit, but certainly at the top of the hill with those nasty walls and tight corners, And downhill braking zones, it's so easy just to lose it and end up in the wall. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Mount Panorama, but I haven't driven it in this car. I don't think. I can't remember ever driving it in this car, so it'll be interesting.
Oh, we look forward to you having your first experience of racing at Mount Panorama in the GT4 come 2 weeks' time. But with that, we do get ready to let you go. And I do have to ask, of course, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
Oh, just you guys. Thanks for the broadcast, because I'll definitely watch it back tomorrow. You always make a great job of it, Paul, and to the other organisers, just for getting this series up and running. It's fantastic. I mentioned in chat just before the race that when I was on holiday, I watched the Long Beach race live, and what an incredible race! I was on the edge of my seat. It was top class racing from everyone. It was a really, really exciting and enjoyable race, and I think that's a great advert for this series.
Oh, 100%, Rob. I'm with you on that. And I think if Long Beach was an advert, I think this was a cinema blockbuster advertisement for the series. And you've been an absolute key actor, no doubt about it. But with that, we'll call it there for now. Congratulations once again on your second and win of the season. We'll see you at Bathurst to see how you can conquer the mountain in the GT4. But until then, savour the moment and have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Thanks very much, Paul. Good night.
So hearing from Rob Sharp there, ladies and gentlemen, the Urburus racing driver who today, well, he couldn't make sense of it. Nobody could make sense of how exactly the AM class completely came embroiled together, but in the end he was able to put words to it all. And talking about initially the fact that qualifying did not go right whatsoever, that primarily being down to the change of the conditions and being afraid of the conditions, indeed many a driver being scared, but still getting out there, getting a lap on the board. But talked about the fact starting towards the back actually was beneficial in that run towards Horseshoe at turn number 1, because of the fact he didn't have to worry about cars behind him necessarily and could therefore be a bit more cautious into the opening braking zone rather than knowing he had to go in at a particular pace. So it worked out for him. It meant he could acclimatise the conditions, and he did have a strategy in mind for the transition to the dry. And as we mentioned earlier, several drivers did come in earlier, so that way they gave themselves the longer second stint. Rob was one of them, and it all played into the plan. And in the end, he got the call to the slick tyre right, and that enabled him to move forward. But he had Martin Rendell constantly breathing down his neck. But in the very end, he was able to make his way into the lead and not look back, just taking that victory ahead of Rendell. Indeed, a second win of the season, and the Urburus racing driver right now definitely looking to be one of the early favourites for the AM title this season. But can he maintain it when he heads to Bathurst, a circuit he's never driven this car at? Well, we'll have to wait and see, ladies and gentlemen. But we've kept one of our drivers waiting for a final interview of the day. Let's not keep them waiting any longer, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back shortly for our final interview of today. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we come to our final interview of this evening. And joining me now in the interview room is none other than your third place finisher from today. It is Stuart Reynolds. Stuart, good evening to you. And if we could describe this race in a single phrase, I think you've been up, down, around, side to side, shaken all about. We're not doing the hokey cokey here, but I mean, can you make sense of this race?
That was horrendous. That was a terrible showing from me.
Oh, goodness me. Well, one thing that wasn't terrible in terms of showing, of course, was qualifying. Second place in the end. Daniel Perry was able to take the pole position, but you were the best of the rest out there. How was qualifying for you?
Yeah, it was good. I did have a lap ruined by Dennis Van Beelen, I think it was, when I was about nearly a second up, which was slightly annoying, but it's not the end of the world. I still got second. But the Porsche was definitely the car to have around here in the wet. It just seemed to have more grip and could put the power down better.
Oh, well, the Porsche might have been the right car to have, but to be fair, you're able to put things together quite well. But in the race itself, we did see you struggle a little bit at the start. I mean, I presume that might be the power of the Mercedes, but did you have a plan in mind to see if you could find a way to steal that win away?
After my fourth spin, no, I didn't. I wasn't going to be able to do a win that race, so it was just damage limitation for me after that. The first couple of laps, obviously, with all the spray and that, I couldn't see anything, and I can't even remember where I span on the first lap, but it just triggered me.
All fair play. Well, it may have triggered you and then you had subsequent spins, but there was a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel as the circuit did dry and we saw you go to the dry tyre. Of course, going to slick tyre, I think quite early, we did see you have a bit of difficulty initially, but once you got it going, you were flying out there.
Yeah, it was as soon as the dry tyre went on, the car was a completely different animal, apart from the first lap where I span on the first corner. But after sorting myself out, it really, something clicked and I could just go quick.
And with the speed that came in, and we saw you start to pick up the places, I mean, were you surprised then that you still finished third and on the podium, given how the day had gone?
That was a shock. It really was, because looking back now, if I hadn't have got my drive-through penalty as well, I think I could have got Matthias as well. But obviously, I got the penalty and I couldn't do anything. And coming past Nils on the start-finish straight, I was like, why is he going so slow? But I think he ran out of fuel.
Oh, indeed. We did get to see that epic conclusion where it looks like you were finishing fourth, but Neil was just running out of fuel about 75 metres to the finish line. I mean, it does go to show, never give up. You never know what can happen. So a third place now added to your 2 wins. I mean, you must be silently confident that, yes, you've had a bit of a knockback today, but given the momentum, it should be back to normal by the time we get to Australia.
Hopefully. Hopefully I'll do quite well at Australia. I mean, everybody loves Bathurst. So I'm a little bit worried about the Fords at Bathurst, judging by previous seasons. They are relatively quick there, and the Merc struggles a little bit with a fixed setup. But we'll find out when we get there.
Oh, 100% we will. And we look forward to seeing what you're going to be able to do there. And, of course, look into Bathurst. I mean, is it a circuit that I know we say that everyone loves it, but is it a circuit you've typically found success at in the past?
I've won the 12 Hours of Sebring Bathurst before, so I know it relatively well. So it is one of my favourite tracks.
Oh, fair play. Well, with that achievement there, we look forward to seeing whether you can echo that next time. But just before I do let you go, a completely unrelated question, but because Easter is just around the corner, it's Easter weekend. If you can't have a Kit Kat, because of course we've got a national crisis of Kit Kats at the moment, what is your favourite chocolate bar you'd recommend for somebody on the Easter holidays?
God, that's a tough one. A twirl.
Well, I'd definitely go with a twirl as well. We're alike in that regard, Stuart. And lastly, of course, I do need to ask, as always, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
As normal, just Fury Simsport and Abruzzi for being our sponsors.
Well, Stuart, congratulations today on a recovery drive to third. Perhaps an unexpected one, but to be fair, we may have got to you, but at the same time, you never let it truly get you down. A great podium. We look forward to plenty more at Bathurst. But until then, congratulations on the podium and well done on putting it all together and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, Paul. You too, mate.
Hearing from Stuart Reynolds there, ladies and gentlemen, and the Fury Simsport driver, understandably, not perhaps 100% content, particularly with the several spins he did have over the course of the day. And it's understandable there. And I think the frustration quite palpable, given the fact he does hold himself at a very high standard. Now, to be fair, a lot of our drivers do, not just our pros, but our AMs. They always hold themselves to the highest regard because the idea is they want to continue to get better. They want to win. You wouldn't be on the grid if you didn't want to improve, go faster and win races. But I think when you make the one spin, it's annoying enough. When you make 2, well, understandably, it gets to you. When you make 4 of them, including the transition onto the slick tyre, it does mentally knock you down. And surprised himself in a way with regards to the fact that he did see what was that absolutely brilliant charge through the field when the car got going. But also talking out the fact there, really, the Achilles heel of the Mercedes being what was the wet conditions and therefore just not able to put it together. Knowing the win was never really going to come to him. But a third definitely did, and he's looking forward to being back on track at Bathurst in 2 weeks' time. A circuit he's enjoyed victory in the iRacing special 12 Hours of Bathurst, but can he take victory against a very close and competitive field? We'll have to see then, ladies and gentlemen. But with that, it's definitely been an absolutely exciting round of races this evening. We've had some absolutely brilliant interviews, but let's give you a quick recap of who exactly we've spoken to. So we've had 3 interviews this evening, and a big thank you to all 3 of our interviews, including, of course, our overall winner today, taking his first win of the season at Paddock Motorsports, Daniel Perry, the pro driver there, absolutely delivering a demonstration of why he's Mr. Cool and Collected in the wet. We then came to your AM winner, Rob Sharp, making it now 2 wins in 2 races participating for Burris Racing. He couldn't quite make comprehension of what exactly happened. Nobody could, but then he was able to put it all together for a brilliant win. And then we just heard from Stuart Reynolds, who initially, understandably, a bit frustrated with the way things have played out, but the flip side of the coin is he did deliver a good qualifying lap, and he did, in the end, salvage a 3rd place out of it, so some good points in the bag, and those could be critical by the time we get to Bathurst in 2 weeks' time. But well done to all 3 of them on their performances, and indeed we appreciate the time in the interview room, and we look forward to plenty more interviews in 2 weeks' time when we do head to Australia. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, or how you can get on the grid even, well, the best thing to do, if this has not been an advertisement for why you should be on the grid in a GT4, I don't know what will be, ladies and gentlemen, because you can join us by going to our official Discord, invite link available on screen there, and you will not find a more comforting, a more welcoming, and a much more competitive sim racing collection of drivers, as you will hear. And it's not just a mixture of sim races, we've also got several real-world racing drivers out there as well on our grid. So therefore, if you want to get on the grid, do join us on our official Discord. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our title sponsor, and that is none other than Oris Digital. And small teams can make a huge impact in the digital marketing and e-commerce space, and Oris Digital knows that best. With 20 years of collective experience in growing businesses through online marketing channels via the provision of services including affiliate management, Amazon marketing, and digital strategy, Oris Digital delivers tangible results to its clients. And if you'd like to know more about how Oris Digital can help grow your business, be sure to head to their website today at www.oris.digital. But we'd also like to say a thank you to one of our series partners, which does include, of course, Arboris Watch. One of our drivers, Rob Sharp, runs Arboris Watch, which designs and markets watch faces for smartwatches running Google's Wear OS. This SRM-themed watch face is available on the Google Play Store just by searching for GT4C. It features a pit board that includes your race position, which improves as you near your step target for the day, a racetrack with selectable colours for each sector, and the trademark Sim Racing Magazine branding, along with other useful information such as heart rate, so you can manage your excitement level in the next SRM race. And if you'd like to know more about Arboris Watches, watch faces, smart watches, why not head to their website at www.arboris.com. And we'd also like to say a big thank you to our more recent series partner who's joined us for this season, and that is Roamworthy. Now, buying the perfect caravan, motorhome or campervan can be an activity which leaves you going round in circles, but not with Roamworthy. Built by technology people who love the road, Roamworthy provides you with the tools you need to put you in the fast lane to buying the caravan, motorhome or campervan, which meets your requirements via a website that is packed with real stock and no pushy sales personnel. So if you'd like to know more, be sure to head to www.roamworthy.co.uk today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got time for today. And next time out, on Tuesday, the 14th of April, 2026, we'll be making our way down under to Australia for the circuit that everybody loves, as Stuart Reynolds has aptly said, is, of course, Mount Panorama Motor Racing Circuit, more commonly referred to as Bathurst. But who exactly there will prove themselves to be king of the mountain? That's the question we need the answer to, as our drivers will be going racing under sunny skies. And what we've seen here in the wet today is that Stuart Reynolds' stranglehold on the top of the Oval Drivers' Championship has been interrupted to a 3rd place finish for him, and Daniel Perry finally finding a chink in the armour and being able to take his first win. Meanwhile, in the AM class, it's Rob Sharp who has made it 2 wins in 3 races, but with so many drivers shining in these challenging conditions, including the likes of Martin Rendell and also Stephen Codman, Niels Cooler and Gary Toole, we could all be changed once again next time out. Indeed, it's the AM class that just keeps on giving alongside our pros. But how exactly will the story continue? We'll tune in 2 weeks' time to find out. But until then, we have been the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. You've been tuning to a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.